Hello, hello, hello. We are live. Welcome to another weekly wrap. This time we will be discussing जो इस हफ्ते हमने एक बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग मीटिंग देखी जेलेंस्की की in the Oval Office. I have my usual guests, Blood and Aaron and Sandy. Blood, you have come here before as well, correct?
Yes, I've come here twice, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it was in the month of January. So, thanks for having me again, I see.
yeah. So Blood closely follows this and so does Sandy. Sandy का तो एक इस war के ऊपर एक story भी है, which if he has time he can tell us. बड़ी interesting story है. How he got involved into this whole conflict per se, but that we'll pick up at a later time. Abhi ke liye, all I can say is कि भाई we got a lot of things to discuss, but let's start with the main thing which everybody is talking about. और मैंने भी वो 8 मिनट का एक क्लिप लगाया था, उस पर ठीक ठाक से व्यूज भी आ गए. वो Zelensky, the president and the vice president, ऐसे लग रहा था कि एक बॉक्सिंग मैच है. और बट जिन्होंने पूरा क्लिप देखा दैट दे से इट्स नॉट द कंप्लीट स्टोरी. आई डिडंट हैव द टाइम टू वॉच द होल क्लिप, बट ब्लड, इफ यू कैन टेक अ लीड ऑन दिस वन कि फर्स्ट अबाउट दैट डिस्कशन एंड देन आई वांट टू पिवट टू कि भाई इससे हम लोगों को फ्रॉम एन इंडिया स्टैंड पॉइंट क्या हमारे को लेसन्स मिलते हैं ऑन डीलिंग विद स्पेशली यूएस from an ally perspective. Vlad, the floor is yours.
Yes, I see. So, let's be. सबसे पहले तो हम कहें कि वो मीटिंग का जो 10 मिनट का जो हिस्सा है लोग दिखा रहे हैं, वो मीडिया दिखा रही है. It wasn't 10 minutes. It was 47 or 49 minutes long. और it started in a courteous manner. बट बाय एंड लार्ज वो एट द फैग एंड ऑफ जिसमें वो आखिर के जो 9 मिनट है जिसमें वो एक दूसरे के साथ मतलब कि एक तरह से स्लैंगिंग मैच है. वो कुछ एक दूसरे के साथ मतलब कि वो भी इंटरप्ट कर रहे हैं, वो अपना पॉइंट रखने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. सो पता नहीं जेलेंस्की व्हाट वाज ही थिंकिंग, बिकॉज मुझे लगता है कि उसको आदत पड़ी हुई है कि इट्स हिज वे और द हाईवे. एंड इट वाज क्वाइट एक्चुअली let's say hilarious. अगर if you are pro Russian, it was a literal takedown of Zelensky. उसको सीधा सीधा कह रहा था कि भाई तेरे को तू इसीलिए टिका हुआ है क्योंकि हम तेरे को हथियार दे रहे हैं, हम तेरी सहायता कर रहे हैं, तू हमें ही बोली जा रहा है. तो कुछ मतलब आप दिखाओ, कोई आप कर्टेसी दिखाएं, एटलीस्ट शो सम ग्रेटिट्यूड. एंड जेडी वांस एट द एंड मतलब कि एट द एंड ऑफ द 9 minutes it was quite brutal. तो थोड़ा हम इस पे ही देखें. कुछ ऐसा ये भी है, कुछ लोग ये भी कहते हैं perhaps कुछ अटकलें हैं, कुछ मतलब कोई there are some rumors that Zelensky is a coke addict, not the drink, the cocaine. He is a cocaine addict. जो वो आदतें होती हैं. So कुछ ऐसा है. कईयों का ये भी कहना था कि आप ही जैसे ट्रंप ने कहा भाई तू सूट में आया ही नहीं, अभी भी तो वैसे उसी में ही है, अपने कैजुअल्स में है, ओवरऑल्स में है. तो शायद तभी से उसको लग गया कि भाई ये जो मीटिंग है काफी टफ होगी और इसकी अब तो खटिया खड़ी होने वाली है. और कुछ चीजें ट्रंप ताऊजी के तौर पे उन्हें ये भी याद था कि ये जेलेंस्की महाशय जो हैं, सो कॉल्ड उक्रेनियन सुपर हीरो, दिस पर्सन हैड कम इन ऑफ ऑल पीपल ड्यूरिंग दिस रिसेंटली हेल्ड अमेरिकन प्रेसिडेंशियल इलेक्शंस. ट्रंप ताऊजी को वो चीजें भी याद होंगी.
करेक्ट.
तो वो सभी का जो एक जो था, और उसके बाद ये पड़ गए पूरे हाथ धो के इसके पीछे कि भाई साहब $350 अरब लगा दिए हैं तुमने, क्या खटा की खटिया तुसी पंजाबी में कहते हैं ना, ये $350 अरब लग गए ने, $350 billion in 3 years. I mean, what have you achieved besides the death of millions of people? You have achieved nothing. You've lost a quarter of your territory. और भी जाने को है। दो फौजें आपने खड़ी करी थी, पहली फौज तो पूरा खत्म होगी, दूसरी फौज खात्मे के कगार में, तीसरी फौज को भी मोबिलाइज कर रहे हैं। लोग इनके पास है नहीं मोबिलाइजेशन के लिए। 70-70 साल के बुढ़े भी भेजे हुए हैं, 17-16 साल के लड़के भी भेजे हुए हैं आगे। तो तुम करना क्या चाहते हो? अब भाई अपना जो
देखो
तुम्हें
वॉर
पीस
इज
प्लान
जस्ट
मिल रहा था अच्छा
मैं कह रहा हूँ
गो
वॉर
अहेड।
इज जस्ट वन थिंग। आप तो अपनी अगली नस्ल ही खत्म कर रहे हो यार। द वे द पीपल हु दे आर सेंडिंग, वो मतलब बिल्कुल ही दे आर नाउ सेंडिंग यंग किड्स टू द वॉर। एंड भाई अगर जीत भी जाओगे तो भाई तुम्हारे पास फिर बचेगा कौन, मतलब फॉर द नेक्स्ट जनरेशन टू कंटिन्यू। तो मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि बिल्कुल ही खत्म हो जाएगी, बट Ukraine is having substantial losses as compared to Russia. रशिया के भी अराउंड 30-40 हजार मर गए, इनके तो उससे मैं थिंक 4 गुना ज्यादा मरे होंगे, 4-5 गुना ज्यादा। बट इफ यू हैव द नंबर्स ब्लड।
Yeah, I mean, you could go on Telegram channels or the official Russian sources. Hain. I'm not saying that Russians did not have casualties. Obviously, they did have casualties. After all, it's war. There will be casualties. But point remains कि हम जज कैसे करेंगे, हम कोलेट कैसे करेंगे, उसे अप्रोक्सीमेट कैसे करेंगे। तो अगर हम देख लें, ओवरऑल देखें कुछ मतलब कि न्यूट्रल या कहो कि कथाकथित तौर पे न्यूट्रल ऑब्जर्वर्स भी हैं, they say it's about 70,000 to 100,000 के बीच में रशियन कैजुअलिटीज। कुछ इनसे इसके आसपास ही हैं, इससे इससे कम तो नहीं हो सकती। भाई 3 साल से लगा जा रहा है, एक मीट ग्राइंडर है। बट द यूक्रेनियन कैजुअलिटीज, ओ माय गुडनेस, there should be questions raised as to how much Ukraine has suffered. They're numbering millions. तो हमें तो बात करनी पड़ेगी इसके ऊपर। और हम क्या इसके ऊपर बात कर सकते हैं भाई? आपकी कितनी आपका ये थर्ड वेव ऑफ मोबिलाइजेशन है, मतलब कि पहली दो फौजें तो इनकी खत्म हो
राइट।
चुकी है पूरी, राइट। जो पिछले जो दो आर्मीज रही हैं वो खत्म हो चुकी हैं। और अभी तो ऐसे ऐसे भी हादसे हुए, हादसे तो क्या, दे हैव बीन सर्टेन इंसिडेंट्स आई सी, जिन माओ ने अपने बच्चे खोए हैं, जिन्होंने अपने बेटे खोए हैं युद्ध में, दे हैव अटैक्ड रिक्रूटर्स ऑन द स्ट्रीट्स ऑफ कीव। कुछ ऐसे भी आपके वाक्य हुए हैं जहां वे दे हैव एक सुसाइड बम्बर की तरह। आई हैड दैट वीडियो, that lady had lost her son on the front lines, or and what she did was, because obviously she was pissed, so what she did was she wrapped up a bomb on herself, went to the recruiters
हाँ,
nearby जो मतलब
राजीव
सड़कों
गांधी
पे थे।
स्टाइल। और राजीव, हाँ जो
बस
राजीव गांधी स्टाइल
करेक्ट
किया था
करेक्ट।
उसमें
और
भी ना। हम्म।
हाँ, वो उन्होंने बटन दबाया और रिक्रूटर्स की ऐसी तैसी, वो भी गए और माता जी भी गई। तो यार बहुत ये मतलब these are quite testing times for the Ukrainians.
In fact, the Ukrainians were fleeing and are still fleeing Ukraine to avoid being conscribed.
देखो, हाँ वो जो पैसे वाले थे, वो तो भाग गए, वो तो ऑलरेडी भाग चुके हैं जो पैसे वाले थे। मर कौन रहा है भाई? दैट इज द मेन क्वेश्चन। मर जो रहा है वो तो गरीब इंसान है। वही आर्मी में हो रहे। जो पैसे वाले थे वो तो ऑलरेडी यूरोप में बैठे हुए हैं। वो तो यूके में, आपको यूएस में, सब जगह नजर आ जाएंगे। जो गरीब है, जिसके पास पैसा नहीं था भागने का, वो फंसा हुआ है और उनको रिक्रूट भी कर रहे हैं, विच इज ओके। पैसे वाले तो कभी भी नहीं मरते, ना कभी लड़ते हैं। बट यार इनकी पूरी इकोनॉमी जा चुकी है, एंड दे हैव बीन गिवन मनी, एंडलेस मनी। और अब तो खैर काफी चीजें निकल के आ रही है कि यूरोप ने तो उनको दिया ही लोन के हिसाब से था। और जब इसको एक्सपोज करना शुरू किया फ्रांस के साथ, जब ये बैठा हुआ था ट्रम्प, तो वो जो फ्रेंच वो क्या प्राइम मिनिस्टर होता है, प्रेसिडेंट होता है ना उनका, उसके उसके बॉडी लैंग्वेज देखने वाली थी। वो उसको कह रहा था, यार यार सब चीजें तो पब्लिकली बताने की जरूरत नहीं है। वो कह रहा भाई हमने तो कुछ दिया भी नहीं, और उनको देखो, नहीं हमने तो कुछ लिखा भी नहीं दिया, इन्होंने तो लोन दिया और ये लोन लेंगे। तो क्वेश्चन अब ये है कि फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन ब्लड आई हैव इज कि व्हाई डिड Zelensky go and meet this guy? What was the need? So let's go from the basics. उनके लिए जो फॉलो नहीं करते, इंडिया में बहुत लोग हैं जो फॉलो नहीं करते लेटेस्ट डेवलपमेंट्स ऑन दिस वॉर बिकॉज इट्स नॉट एट होम, तो दे आर नॉट बॉदर्ड। तो अगर उनको एक क्विक रिकैप देना पड़े कि भाई ये कितने साल हो गए, 2 साल हो गए ना इसको चलते हुए, ये वॉर चल
तीसरा
रही
साल
है
लग गया है।
नहीं नहीं
एंड
नहीं
3 साल खत्म हो गया ना,
ती-
2025। इट स्टार्टेड ऑन 24th of February 2022. This is 25. So
हाँ
you've
2022,
done.
हाँ हाँ,
हाँ, है ना?
तो मतलब देख लो कितनी
So
लंबी
it's
चल
been
गई है।
3 years.
तो 3 ईयर देखो वॉर चल रही है, वॉर स्टार्ट हुई, what were the reasons for the war to start in the first place? क्योंकि यूक्रेन ने बोला था we'll join the NATO alliance, राइट? जिसपे रशिया ने साफ बोला था कि भाई अगर तुम नेटो में ज्वाइन करने की बात करोगे, टॉलरेट दैट्स अ नो गो जोन, राइट? नाला ज्वाइन करने के लिए, ठीक है ना, और जमीन भी अलग से गई, और वो वाला इलाका गया डॉनबास और ये सब इलाके गए इनके, विच आर मिनरल एंड गैस रिच। तो एक हिसाब लगाया गया है कि रशिया हैज, if it Russia maintains the area that has got, it will be quite rich in the coming time because of the vast resources available in those areas which are untapped. तो रशिया लॉन्ग टर्म गेम खेल रहा है, तो नेटो की तो अब बात ही नहीं होती है कि भाई तेरे को अब नेटो में डाला जाएगा। बट द क्वेश्चन वाज व्हाट वाज द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ पुतिन अगर ये नेटो ज्वाइन कर लेता? ब्लैड, डू यू वांट टू ऐड एनीथिंग ऑन दैट?
ये आई मीन मुसीबत खड़ी हो जानी थी भाई। अब कौन चाहता कि वुड इंडिया प्रेफर टू हैव पाकिस्तान और लेट्स से चाइना टू गिव मिसाइल्स और बेस राइट इन अवर नेपाल, या भूटान का जो डोकलाम प्लेटू है, या भूटान में ही आके चीन फौज खड़ी हो जाए। अभी मतलब कि वो पहले क्या हमारा उनके बॉर्डर के साथ कोई है नहीं क्या? सपोजिटली वो बांग्लादेश में अपना बेस बना ले या श्रीलंका में अपना बेस बना ले। तो ये चीजें बहुत मैटर करती हैं यार।
राइट,
रशिया भी कोई ये थोड़ी चाहेगा, क्या जरूरत पड़ी है इनके वहां पे उक्रेन इज बेसिकली इट्स देयर इज डिफरेंस। द अमेरिकन्स they achieved what they wanted to achieve back in the 1990 जब डिसोल्यूशन हो गया था सोवियत यूनियन का। so they had achieved their objective। अभी तो जैसे जबरदस्ती पंगा लेने की है बात। कभी ये चेचनिया के अंदर मतलब कि इस्लामिस्ट को सपोर्ट करता है CIA स्पॉन्सर्ड प्रोग्राम्स के जरिए अमेरिका। कभी ये मतलब कि अपना और भी काफी जो इनके डेस्परेट ऑपोजिशन ग्रुप्स हैं इनको फंड करता है। हमारे यहाँ भी ट्रंप जी ने कहा था, ताऊ जी ने, कि $21 मिलियन जो है इन्होंने वोटिंग परसेंटेज बढ़ाने के लिए इंडिया में यूएसएड ने दिए थे। भाई $21 मिलियन देने की तुम्हें क्या आफत आन पड़ी?
वो
हमारा तो वोटिंग परसेंटेज हमेशा
नहीं
अमेरिका से
उसका,
बढ़िया रहा है।
नहीं उसका उसका कुछ अपडेट आया है, एंड यू कैन करेक्ट मी इफ आई एम रॉन्ग, कि वो पैसा इंडिया में नहीं, वो पैसा वाज फॉर बांग्लादेश। बट यू कैन करेक्ट मी इफ आई एम रॉन्ग ऑन दैट, दैट्स द अदर थिंग आई हैड हर्ड अबाउट दैट पर्टिकुलर थिंग, सो आई एम नॉट श्योर, we'll have to see on that one. But
So,
again,
so
I'm
maybe
not
I can try and
वो तो
explain this situation. क्यों start हुआ, right?
हम्म,
Around 1990 एक पैक्ट हुआ था जो मिखाइल गॉर्बेचेव के टाइम पे, कि नाटो ईस्टवर्ड नहीं आएगा, ठीक है? Now, what slowly started happening was NATO started expanding even after USSR broke into smaller chunks. NATO had the ambition of moving towards the east, moving towards Russian borders. Um, and they wanted to have nukes deployed to some extent, and not just nukes but forces in this part of the world. So this guy was trying for. So you have to go a little backwards as well. If you're okay, then we can go a little backwards and start from the Maidan coup, because most of your issues lie or have had started happening during the Maidan coup, or before that, right? So if you go back in the history, this whole thing started 100 years back, during Stephen Bindara's era, where he wanted to have that division basis the linguistics, and how he supported few people. Will not get to that, but coming to towards the time when USSR was getting fragmented into smaller countries, उस time पे basically there was an agreement between Russia and the European side that they will not move eastwards. उस time पे there was a so you had two options: either you are towards Russia, or you want to or you would move towards European region. Okay. So the president at that time, Viktor Yanukovych, and before him there was a gentleman called Peter Poroshenko. Okay, these guys were more pro Russian. So they said that we have a mighty Russia on our heels, and most of the people there are ethnic Russian-speaking people as well. So it'll make sense for us to have good relations with Russia, even if we shouldn't be allies with either of them. We should maintain good relations with both. Then during this time, when Mr. Yanukovych took over, uh, there was this other guy. Uh, I forgot that guy's name. Let me look that up. Think this guy was. So there was a lady, Yulia Timoshenko, and there was one more
Mm-hmm.
guy who was more EU focused. So he wanted um, the Ukraine to align with the European Union and not think about Russia at all. Now, this is where the problem was. Because if you look at the borders of Russia, there are other countries also which are bordering Russia, like Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. They are also NATO allies, but they were not anti-Russia. They maintained, while they were aligned with NATO, they maintained neutrality towards Russia as well. Right? They did not, if they did not love Russia, they did not even hate Russia. Right? Here there was a different scenario altogether.
अपनी अलायंस भी बन गई थी ना, वो रशिया
हाँ
जिसको हेड करता था,
हाँ सो वो
जिसमें ये वन ऑफ दीज कंट्रीज, ये अर्मेनिया या अजरबैजान, वो वन ऑफ दीज
हाँ
कंट्रीज भी थी.
आर्मीनिया वाज देयर. ठीक है.
अरे कॉमनवेल्थ ऑफ
आर्मेनिया वाज
इंडिपेंडेंट
देयर.
स्टेट्स सीआईएस था.
हाँ
हाँ
सीआईएस
सो
इट वाज
हाँ हाँ.
कॉल्ड.
हाँ सो ये जो चीज थी ना, दिस वाज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द टू. मतलब ये जो लातविया एस्टोनिया, क्योंकि ये बहुत बार सवाल पूछा जाता है कि उसने लातविया और एस्टोनिया और इन सब पे क्यों नहीं हमला किया, राइट? द रीजन व्हाई ही डिड नॉट डू इट व्हेन दे वर एक्सटेंडिंग टू नेटो वाज दे वर नॉट
Mm-hmm.
anti Russia. If they were not pro Russia, they were also not anti Russia. Here the sentiments were a little different. After Viktor Yanukovych and Peter Poroshenko were not in the helm of affairs, उसके बाद से they were more anti-Russia, and therefore Russia could not afford NATO knocking on Russian doors, right? So they had to do something. So what he did was he strategically selected a region which is pro-Russia and dominated by Russian speaking people, which is Donbass, which comprises of two distinct regions called the Donetsk and Luhansk. Uh, you would have heard this word DPR or LPR,
Mm-hmm.
Donetsk People Republic,
Mm-hmm.
and Lugansk People Republic or militia,
Yeah.
right? Basis which
Yeah.
side you are, you would call them republic or militia. right?
Mhm.
So how did this whole thing started? Uh, During Maidan, while most of us know about Maidan, we do not know about Odessa killings that had happened of the civilians who were anti-Maidan. So there was a bit of civil war going on within Ukraine, where the Ukrainian government was against these people, the Donbas region. If I remember correctly, 2014 is when the Donetsk airport was international airport was getting inaugurated, and the government of that time they actually attacked and captured. No, I think it was 2015, 2015 or 16, after Crimea got annexed. उसके बाद का है they actually attacked and took over, and then the volunteers, college going students and some of the able men who were part of the army, they formed a militia or a militia group, and they started fighting against it कि भाई हमारा हमारे region में airport बना था, we're expecting growth, we were expecting all of that stuff, and suddenly you come and destroy everything and destroy and take over things. Yeah. So there had been a lot of issues going on, civil issues, unrest going on in that region. So after annexing Crimea, uh, there was a recent statement, not recent but 2023. Angela Merkel and Alexander Hollande, the Chancellor of Germany and the ex-president of ex-Chancellor of Germany and ex-president of France. They said that when we did the Minsk agreement, in Minsk they agreed that Crimea would remain with Russia. You have to agree with the peace deal. And in return, Russia will not do aggression. Something that this guy was talking about. अगर आपने देखा होगा तो उसने उसने जब जेडी वैंस ये पॉइंट आउट करते हैं कि यू हैव टू डू डिप्लोमेसी, तो उस वो कहता ना कि डिप्लोमेसी किससे डिप्लोमेसी, उसने पहले भी तो वादे किए थे, बट उसने वो रखा नहीं, तो ही वाज पर्टिकुलरली रिफरिंग टू द मिन्स्क एग्रीमेंट. Neither side actually actually agreed to it. मिन्स्क में इन्होंने कहा कि इनको 4 साल हम लोग देना चाहते थे ताकि यूक्रेन अपने आप को प्रिपेयर कर सके फॉर दिस वॉर. सो बेसिकली ये वॉर जो है प्रेपरेशन 2014 से ही शुरू हो गई थी, मिन्स्क एग्रीमेंट से ही शुरू हो गई थी. दैट्स व्हाट एंजेला मर्कल एंड अलेक्जेंडर होलांदे हैड सेड इन अ स्टेटमेंट कि हमने 4 साल दिए थे इनको तैयारी करने के लिए, और बाकायदे इनकी ट्रेनिंग करवाई गई थी यूरोपियन यूनियन द्वारा, इनके मिलिट्री की और वो सब की. अनफॉर्चुनेटली जैसे कहते हैं कि फूल विद अ टूल इज स्टिल अ फूल, तो इनके पास दो डिविजन्स थी, एक का नाम था क्रैकन और एक का नाम था अजोव. ठीक है. आपने सुना होगा ये बार बार ये कहते थे कि ये नाजी 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 नाजी. 55th पेंजर डिवीजन का इंसिग्निया वो इनके अजोव बटालियन का इंसिग्निया था. ठीक है. So that is why they used to call them. He's doing an Nazi cleanup, जो उन्होंने एक नाम दिया था when he was actually rolling his tanks in. So he was particularly referring to Azov and Kraken. Azov and Kraken was almost as good as you had this guy. क्या नाम था उसका, प्रिगोशन, उसका क्या नाम था, डब्ल्यू से नाम शुरू होता था उसकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का, forgot the name. Wagner Group. So so these guys were also more like mercenaries in military. Uh, Very dreaded and feared. जो पहली लड़ाई हुई थी, पहले साल की लड़ाई में, इनिशियल लड़ाई में ही एक अजोवस्ताल स्टील फैक्ट्री है, वहां का जो कैप्चर था, द ऑलमोस्ट द एंटायर बटालियन ऑफ अजोव was wiped out, and they were like had battle, not battle hardened but trained soldiers, very good soldiers.
वो उनके मोस्ट ट्रेन
इलाइट्स,
सोल्जर्स थे. ठीक है.
उनके इलाइट्स थे, वो
हाँ.
पहले ही ग्राइंड हो चुके थे. what
हम्म.
what happens when Russia goes into war, if you look at the history starting from Napoleon Bonaparte, Russia has always been like this. It believes in meat grinders, and it created meat grinder for Ukraine. 2022 2022 दिसंबर 2023 तक में वो अपने 1 मिलियन सोल्जर्स यूक्रेनियंस खो चुके थे खो चुके थे ठीक है. They did not have people. They were conscripting anyone and everyone. People started running away from it. So the root of this whole thing goes back to like 2014ish. While these guys said that they were giving 4 years for Ukraine to prepare for this war, Russia outplayed them, literally outplayed them. Russia calculated what is it that they're thinking at, what will be their responses, and in response, he had prepared his. So he understood what will be their not response but reactions, and he was ready with his responses much ahead of the time. As part of the response, I'm not sure how many people realize this. 4 साल के अंदर उसने बहुत बहुत अलग अलग काम किए. पहला, ही न्यू दैट इनका रिएक्शन ये आएगा, नी जर्क रिएक्शन, कि इनको स्विफ्ट से हटा देंगे कि तू धंधा ही कैसे करेगा. उसने पहले से ही एसपीएसएस बना रखा था. All he had to do is the banks to subscribe to it, and the commodity he had was gas. जो आपका यूरोप का मैक्सिमम रीजन है, बिना गैस के नहीं चल सकता, because they need heaters. Most of them have gas heaters, and because they had gas heaters, converting them to a diesel heater. For example, during that I was in UK. वहां पे डीजल हीटर पे चेंज करने का अच्छा खासा पैसा था, मोटा पैसा. ठीक है. So they were not able to do that. Now they needed gas. Most of the people subscribe to it. गैसप्रॉम पे अकाउंट खुलवा लिया था, एसपीएसएस पे एंट्री ले ली थी. बैंक्स हैड टू कम, नो अदर चॉइस. ठीक है. सेकेंड थिंग ही डिड वाज, रशिया हैड टू कमोडिटीज, गैस, द अदर वन वाज ऑयल. अब ऑयल का क्या करे? दे लुक्ड एट इंडिया. दे लुक्ड एट इंडिया. ओके. मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल डू नॉट नो. हमारे मतलब बहुत लोगों को पता भी है, बट जनरली हमने कभी नोटिस किया कि एक हमारे पास तेल की कंपनी होती थी, SR. ठीक है.
जिसने मोबाइल फोन भी
रुइयाज.
किया
यस.
था ना.
रुइयाज. ठीक है.
हाँ,
रुइयाज
एसआर ग्रुप.
वांटेड
हाँ,
टू रीस्ट्रक्चर देयर डेट्स एंड वांटेड टू सेल ऑफ देयर एसेट्स. तो कौन आता है बीच में? रॉसनेफ्ट. 2 years before this war, I think 3 years before the war, Rosneft acquired majority stake in Pipavav and in SR, and therefore they got the Pipavav port. ठीक है. They are the majority stakeholders. And एक नई कंपनी बनी थी जिसका नाम था न्यारा एनर्जीज. NYARA. न्यारा एनर्जीज is yesteryear's SR Energies, which was rechristened after Rosneft bought it over. As a result of that, what happened was, आपको जब ये वॉर चला था और उन्होंने एकदम से आपने देखा कि रशिया, मतलब व्लादिमीर पुतिन आता है और केवल इंडिया को डिस्काउंट देता है. देयर वाज अ रीजन बिहाइंड इट.
नहीं, चाइना को भी दिया
चाइना
था.
को दिया
इंडिया
था,
चाइना को
बट
दिया
सुनो,
था.
चाइना को दिया था, बट जितने भी वो जो डिस्काउंट्स थे, द रीजन व्हाई इट स्टार्टेड विद इंडिया फर्स्ट वाज बिकॉज लोग जो यूरोप और यूएस जो है वो इंडिया से खरीदने में ज्यादा इंटरेस्टेड है बजाय चाइना के. ठीक है. द अदर थिंग वाज, it is only India that can process any kind of oil.
हाँ,
And India
नहीं, वो
has,
चाइना भी कर सकता है, पर चाइना की खुद की यूसेज इतनी ज्यादा है.
yes,
इंडिया का क्या है कि इंडिया, वन ऑफ द एडवांटेजेस इज कि इंडिया यूएस से भी जो ले सकता है. यूएस और इनका जो वो कौन सा इलाका है, उसमें ना एक
Brent crude,
सल्फर कंटेंट हायर होता है.
Brent crude,
हाँ, वो
Texas
अ,
oil.
हाँ, टेक्सास ऑयल का सल्फर कंटेंट ज्यादा है.
Yes,
तो इवन ये पाकिस्तान में भी बात उठी थी कि जी इमरान खान की है जी सस्ता तेल लेके आएगा. हाँ, तो लोगों ने वहां बोला था कि भाई हमारे पास रिफाइनरीज ही नहीं है. इंडिया
yes.
कर सकता है बिकॉज
India
क्योंकि
has
एवरी रिफाइनरी इज केपेबल ऑफ डूइंग हाई सल्फर कंटेंट. तुम्हारी
any kind
जितनी
of oil you
रिफाइनरीज है
have, any kind of oil you have,
या
irrespective of the sulfur content, we can process
हाँ,
it. You'll be surprised to know
करेक्ट.
in the recent time, अब जो है वी आर द हाईएस्ट एक्सपोर्टर्स ऑफ प्रोसेस्ड ऑयल, पेट्रोल एंड डीजल टू द एंटायर यूरोप। यूरोपियन यूनियन का सबसे बड़ा सप्लायर हम हो गए, बीटिंग सऊदी अरेबिया एज ऑफ लास्ट
Yeah,
मंथ।
yeah,
ठीक है,
yeah.
हमने उनको बीट कर दिया है। सो दिस इज द रीजन व्हाई ही चोज द पीपल प्रॉपरली। उनको ये पता था कि इंडिया बिकम्स, इवन इफ चाइना हैड, राइट, दे वर नॉट रियली रेडी टू सपोर्ट चाइना, बट इंडिया के साथ वो बिजनेस करने को, धंधा करने को तैयार थे। ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे उन्होंने खरीद के वहां से, सो इन टोटलिटी व्हाट वाज हैपनिंग वाज दीज गाइस वर थिंकिंग कि 4 साल 5 साल देते हैं इनको, ट्रेन करते हैं, फिर क्रीमिया पे चढ़ाई करेंगे। ठीक है, पुतिन ने कहा कम टू डैडी, ठीक है, मैं तुम्हारा अब्बा हुजूर हूँ। ठीक है, और अब्बा हुजूर ने इनकी अच्छे से लगाई। 4 साल बाद वो अच्छे से तैयार होके बैठे थे और उन्होंने कायदे से बैंड बजाई इनके। ठीक है, सो दिस इज व्हाट वाज हैपनिंग behind doors from 2014. In fact, not even 2014, this whole shit started way back in 1990 and it was going on, just that ye phir the way things started uh, uh, pushing after the Maidan coup, and then following how this joker became the president, and then more acting, less actions on ground। जैसे वो कह रहा था कि ओ या आई हर्ड दैट फ्रॉम पुतिन, दो दो दिन में हम खत्म हो जाएंगे, आई हर्ड दैट फ्रॉम पुतिन इज वेल, आई फीलिंग लाइक आई एम इन क्रेमलिन। बट ताऊ, if they did not have javelins which were supplied by US, storm shadows supplied by European unions, right, एक घंटा कुछ कर पाता, इसके पास था कुछ अपना। So look, when you've gone out there for negotiations, you have to negotiate in the right manner. Now, at the end of the day, now when we talk about Zelensky himself, sorry, एक छोटी सी बात
this
और
thing
कहूंगा।
over with. You see the hatred he's got.
He is the traitor of Ukraine. He is the traitor of Ukraine, and I can prove it. But मैं काफी
Yeah.
देर से बात कर रहा हूँ, so unless
हाँ,
I think Blood and I
मैंने
might have to
मैंने
pause for us.
इतनी देर में ना, बिफोर वी कंटिन्यू, दिस इज एन 8 मिनट वीडियो, आई डोंट थिंक वील वॉच द होल वीडियो, पर मैं लोगों को दिखाना चाहता हूँ कि भाई हुआ क्या था, व्हाई वी आर डिस्कसिंग दिस, राइट। तो मैंने अपलोड कर दिया है एंड आई जस्ट प्ले बिट स्निपेट्स ऑफ इट। ब्लड, यू आर ओके विद दैट? Right,
This
I'll
thing
take
Yes, I'm
over
it.
with.
okay
You
with
see
it.
the hatred he's
कभी
got
don't
for
उसके बारे
Putin.
में
It's
ऐसी
very
meeting के
tough
context
for
में
me
बात
to make a
करें।
deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that, but I can, for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that, but I can,
क्या हुआ, हैंग हो गया? मैंने फुल
for
स्क्रीन
me to
किया,
make a deal
हैंग
with
हो
that
गया।
kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with,
बफर
him
कर रहा
either.
है, हाँ।
So it's not a question of alignment. I'm in alignment.
It's okay. It's buffering. I'll try to play it through other channel. So in the meantime, Blood, you want to add something? I'll try to play it from other channel. मैं तो इसमें upload ही कर दिया था. I thought कि it might work better that way.
But I can
Seems to
tell
be
you the
working.
other side isn't exactly in love with,
मैं जैसे मीटिंग again.
Buffer कर रहा है. Let me see if I can play it through another channel. If it works, it works. Sometimes it buffers. Not the best experience. Apologies, guys, for that. Let's try another.
It's all right. It's all right. Nothing to
I'll
apologize. I
open my.
mean, ये जितना भी है, ये हमारे जो मीटिंग का 9 मिनट का ये क्लिप रहा है। तो कुछ सोर्सेस कह रहे हैं कि it was about 49 minutes out, जो ये आखिर के 9 मिनट का ही है। तो बेसिकली जो मीटिंग किस कंटेक्स्ट में हो रही थी, हम उस पर बात करते हैं। अब जैसे सभी को पता है कि ये जो 3 साल हो गए हैं, फरवरी 2022 में शुरू हुआ, अब फरवरी 2025 खत्म हुआ, 3 साल तो हो ही गए, पूरे चौथा साल चल रहा है इस युद्ध का रशिया और यूक्रेन के बीच में। ये इशू क्या हुआ कि हमारे ज़ेलेंस्की जी को जाकर ट्रम्प ताऊ जी से मीटिंग करनी पड़ गई और कहना पड़ गया कि भाई हमारी सहायता करो। देखो, बात ये है कि अब इतना जो $350 अरब दिए हैं भाई, उसका कुछ ना कुछ आपको तो देना पड़ेगा ना। यू विल हैव टू रिटर्न इट समहाउ। जैसे याद हो सेकंड वर्ल्ड वॉर में लैंड लीज एग्रीमेंट किया था अमेरिका ने, पूरा जो जितना भी वेस्टर्न ब्लॉक था उन सबको हथियार दिए, ब्रिटेन को, पता नहीं फ्रांस में जो जो इनके फाइटर्स थे, गुरिल्ला फाइटर्स, तकरीबन सबको दिया ना। फिर उसके बाद उन्होंने निकलवाया भी।
राइट।
तो वही चीज हो रही थी। तो उन्होंने यही कहा था कि अब अपने रेयर अर्थ मिनरल्स हैं जो कि बिल्कुल हर कोई उसके ऊपर जाना चाहेगा, मतलब काबिज होना चाहेगा, जो चाहता है कि एक सुपर पावर बनो। ये वो जो यूक्रेन के जो रेयर अर्थ मिनरल्स थे, इट वाज रिगार्डिंग दैट ओनली। तो ये ज़ेलेंस्की वेंट देयर टू सिक्योर कंटिन्यूड अमेरिकन सपोर्ट फॉर यूक्रेन, करेक्ट। और ये नेगोशिएशन करना चाहता था डील से। तो ये चाहता था कि मतलब कि अमेरिका अपना स्टांस चेंज ना करे, रशिया की फेवर में ना जाए, क्योंकि ट्रंप जी ने तो कह दिया कि भाई मैं तो चाहता हूँ कि शांति हो, शांति वार्ता हो। और वो बिल्कुल बोल भी रहा है कि मैं इस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को जल्दी खत्म करूंगा, क्योंकि उसका जो बेस है वो पक चुका है। जिन्होंने उसको वोट किया है ट्रंप को, वो पक चुका है कि भाई कितने आप हमारे टैक्स डॉलर्स भेजी जा रहे हैं वहां पर, हमारे यहाँ इतनी इकोनॉमिक प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, आप अपना जो अमेरिकन टैक्स डॉलर्स दे शुड रिमेन इन अमेरिका एंड बी यूज्ड फॉर द वेलफेयर ऑफ, which is a valid argument. Who wants the? I would not want Indian tax money to go outside to fund somebody else's war. I would want that tax money to be used on Indians. So Trump was obviously Trump is right upon it. तो हुआ ये है कि बस उसके बाद ये गए तो थे वहां पर, लेकिन कुछ हो गया पंगा दूसरा। क्योंकि his broader goal ये था कि he wanted Trump's willingness to maintain the US military and political backing, which Trump obviously has said कि भाई अब नहीं होगा, तू अपने आप से अब तू एक पीस डील कर के दौरान पता ही लग गया। और जो एक नेटो मेंबरशिप की बात हो रही थी कि भाई यूक्रेन को नेटो मेंबरशिप दी जाएगी, वो भी अब उसके ऊपर ताले लग गए हैं। ठीक है, ट्रंप ने उसको भी रिलक्टेंस दिया, प्रॉमिस की भाई वो नहीं मैं कर सकता। कुछ सिक्योरिटी गारंटीज की मांग करी थी रशियन असॉल्ट से, ट्रंप ने कहा यार उसमें भी दिक्कत आएगी क्योंकि आपने भी, यू आर अ बैड फेथ एक्टर एंड ट्रंप इज राइट। I mean, I don't know if Sandy talked about this, but this Minsk agreement and which was signed, it was sabotaged by the British, and was sabotaged by guess who else? Mr. Boris Johnson, the then Prime Minister of Great Britain. तो उन लोगों ने इसको सबोटाज किया। अभी भी
नहीं,
ईयू
वो
चाहता
मिन्स्क
है कि
वाला
ये
नहीं था
डील
ना,
ना हो, ये सबोटाज।
ब्लड ब्लड भाई, वो
2014 में
मिन्स्क वाला नहीं था, दैट वाज द, ये अपना इस्तांबुल में हुई थी वो मीटिंग जो आप कह रहे हो ना, जो सैबोटाज किया था बोरिस जॉनसन ने, वो तुर्की
I'm
वाले,
sorry, I stand
तुर्की।
corrected.
हाँ,
Yes, I stand corrected. But the point I was making was it was Boris Johnson that sabotaged this peace initiative. उसने कह दिया था कि भाई हम तू तेरे पीछे हैं, हम कोई टेंशन नहीं, लड़ो। तो अब वही है कि ये इनको चाहिए थी क्लैरिटी ज़ेलेंस्की को कि ट्रम्प की इंटेंशन क्या है रिगार्डिंग मिलिट्री एड, क्या वो सैंक्शंस बनाए रखेगा रशिया पे, जो रशियन फ्रोजन एसेट्स हैं क्या उनको फ्रोजन ही रखा जाएगा, क्या उनको रशिया को वापस दे दिया जाएगा। ठीक है, लेकिन वो बातें नहीं हो पाई और इसी के कारण में ये फेलियर रहा। द मीटिंग एंडेड अप एज अ फेलियर बिकॉज ये तो आपने देख ही चुका है, ये 9 मिनट का क्लिप आप देख ही रहे हैं कि सरेआम जितना वो रूडली बिहेव कर रहा है अपने होस्ट के साथ। Zelensky is a guest there, right? You should at least and he is representing his country. ये कोई साला छोटा मोटा कोई साला बार में बैठने वाली कोई मीटिंग थोड़ी हो रही है। So basically what he went there and he, as Sandy pointed out, that if you elect a clown you expect a circus, ये वही वाली बात हुई है। He should have, I mean, अगर कुछ मतलब कि यार अपने मान सम्मान के लिए, अपने देश के लिए, अगर आपको कोई अपने मान सम्मान में कोई क्षति पहुंचे या कुछ ऐसा हो गया आपके ऊपर, यू आर सफरिंग सम एक्सेसेस ऑन योर ऑनर, तो यार वो कड़वा घूंट पी लेते हैं लोग। तो चुपचाप करके हाँ भाई ठीक है, चुपचाप बैठा रहता है। बाद में क्या पता ये बात बन भी जाती है, अपने यहाँ पे पीस एग्रीमेंट हो जाता और ये कई लोगों की जान भी बच जाती, पर नहीं, तेरे को ज्यादा ही था। एक तो ही हिमसेल्फ इज अ कोकेन एडिक्ट, तो वहां पर गया भी था तो पहले ही मतलब ताव में आ गया होगा। तो ये तो फिर इट्स कर्टन्स फॉर हिम। अभी और देखो, ये 4-5 महीने और चलेगा तो मुसीबत और आएगी इनके सर पे। रशिया ओडेसा भी कब्जा कर लेगा और ओडेसा भी कब्जा कर लेगा। परहैप्स देन he will rethink what he did कहते हैं ना, hindsight is 2020. You should have taken that deal, man. Come on, it was
अब
entirely.
देखते हैं, let's भाई he would have lost far less. But ठीक है, अब hindsight में क्या करते हैं. चल, let's try this again. If it works this time, let's see if it works this time or not.
देखिए, बात यह है, वर्क उस टाइम की तो अब रही नहीं ना. अब जितना इनको असल में एक और बात ऐड करना भूल गया माइसी.
Blood, एक सेकंड. Are you getting the sound? मेरे को बस ये कंफर्म करना था. Was the sound coming जो मैंने अभी शेयर किया था?
Not right now. वो क्लिप ही नहीं चल रही.
Okay, let me try it again. नहीं, क्लिप तो मैंने पॉज कर दिया अभी मैंने पॉज कर दी थी. हाँ, but you continue. I think I know what has happened. हाँ, you continue.
Okay, the point was, I was saying was, as Sandy also pointed out, they wanted this war to continue. It's all a grift. ठीक है. तो फिलहाल के लिए इनके पास अपने मोबिलाइजेशन के जो फिगर्स हैं वो भी थोड़े क्वेश्चनेबल हैं. लोग भी विरोध कर रहे हैं. 3.7 मिलियन तो इंटरनली डिस्प्लेस्ड हैं यूक्रेन में ही. 10 मिलियन के मतलब कि जो आंकड़े बता रहे हैं, मैंने अभी सर्च करके देखा है, 10 मिलियन के आसपास वो बाहर चले गए एंड सम ऑफ देम हैव रिटर्न्ड. यूएन ने तो एस्टिमेट्स दिए 14 मिलियन के. तो I mean, it's basically quite concerning, man. I mean, the amount of people that have lost their lives, it's actually बहुत ही sad है यार. It's quite sad.
Okay, Sandy, if you're stuck, you can get out and come back. And अच्छा, चलो मैं अभी शेयर करता हूँ. I'm going to share the screen now. So
this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for.
Is it working now?
It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous, and I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either.
Yep.
So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Hey, I will respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the president's words mattered more than the president of the United States' actions. What makes America is America engaging in empathy. That's what President Trump's doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So, occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2015.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
That's exactly right.
yes, but during 2014 till 2020, was the situation the same? The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president, in 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract. Yes, he broke ceasefire. He killed our people, and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come?
Let's pause it here because now the fun starts actually. ये अगर आप देखो तो ये कह रहे हैं कि ये सीधा बोल रहा है कि भाई इसने मुंह पे बोल दिया कि भाई तुम्हारे को मैन पावर इशू है. ब्लड, कैन यू हियर मी?
Yes, I can hear you.
Blood, you there?
Obvious नहीं है. Yes, I can hear you.
yeah.
They have obvious नहीं है सामने है. They have lost them. ये सामने है.
पहले तो मेरे को बॉडी लैंग्वेज देखो तुम यार. ये मैंने जो ये ट्वीट किया था ना, मैंने इसमें यही कहा था कि भाई ये ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे स्कूल का बच्चा है. And we need to be careful on the type of politicians we are actually getting in. भाई अगर आप तुम कॉमेडियन को लेके आओगे, he is not bred for this kind of a thing. And you can see in negotiations में इसको भाई there are always diplomacy happens in front and in behind closed doors. तुम्हें ये करना है, तुम behind closed doors करो. I'll just check. So behind closed doors karo, and if you're having an issue just get out, come out and come back in. So behind closed doors karo, you're not supposed to do it in front of everybody. Unfortunately ये जो कर रहा है, he's doing it in front of everybody. हाँ, sorry, क्या कह रहे हैं? Blood, you were saying something?
मैं कह रहा हूँ वो एक एक्टर है.
हाँ. Correct. तो आप जो हायर कर रहे हो लोग, you have to be very careful of the people you are hiring, right? And this is what happens. मतलब कि हायर नहीं, मतलब इलेक्टिंग. खैर इसका तो खैर टर्म भी खत्म हो गया है. So this is the point which I'm trying to say कि if you elect such people, then this is what you get in the end of the day. अब आपने इलेक्ट ही ऐसे बंदा किया है, he cannot negotiate. He is not in a position to negotiate. He is in a very bad position. And और देखो ये how has he come dressed up यार? हाँ, मतलब it clearly shows I don't care. It clearly shows कि I don't care what you are saying. The way he is dressed up, if you have a look at this, the way he is dressed up, क्या है मतलब, क्या ट्रैक सूट पहन के आया हुआ है? You're going and meeting the guy from whom you're about to ask money, right? And is this the way you get dressed up? So matlab I don't care attitude. What are you trying to show? उसके बाद it'll only get better from now on. कि अब जेडी वैंस को बोलना पड़ रहा है कि भाई तू यहाँ पर आया है, जो तू दिखाता है वो प्रोपेगेंडा, तुम्हें मैन पावर इशू, ये पब्लिकली वो बोल रहा है, because he has also now lost it. Sandy, you wanted to say something? Can you speak now? I think
yes, Sandy, have you joined? Sandy, perhaps if not.
Yeah, I'm in.
He's in. You can hear. Sandy, you want to add anything on this? क्योंकि मैं इसको फिर आगे continue करता हूँ. We've already gone through halfway of this.
Look. If you look at how this guy has always been, right? You will get to know that मुझे तो कभी कभार लगती है इसी तरह से क्या, मतलब एक ही पैटर्न ड्रेस कलर अलग रहते हैं, यही पहन
पहले तो खाकी पहन के घूमता रहता था.
हाँ. So this is what he does. आप कोई भी हो, कुछ हो, इतने बड़े हो, मैं आपके सामने आ रहा हूँ, लेकिन चौड़े हो क्या, right? and that's what Vance pointed out. But एक चीज है, to be fair, जिस तरीके से he pointed out this thing, जेडी वैंस की, भाई तुम आए थे यहाँ पे वो करने के लिए क्या था वो when he said तुम यहाँ पे आए तो इसका अगस्त में प्रचार करने के लिए. So that was also not right, I guess. But ठीक है, at the end of the day, he had come here for negotiation. All he had come with this, the intention कि मैं यहाँ पे आऊँगा, चेक मिलेगा और मैं चला जाऊँगा.
Is your mic on? Is your mic on?
Yeah, not mine, but people are complaining echo aa rahi hai. So Sandy, I think is your other mic on? If you otherwise that might be the reason why the echo. बस बेको भी किसी ने बोला. Okay, I'm shutting down my mic. Tell me if the echo is.
ये meeting से no, it's okay. It's okay. If you're listening to me, I mean, yeah, ये जो meeting हो रही है basically. Okay, my voice is also echoing.
अच्छा, जो बोल रहा है सिर्फ वही अपनी माइक ऑन करो, दूसरा म्यूट कर दो.
I think the issue is with your mic. एक बार अपने आप को म्यूट करो.
Yeah, I'm already on mute.
Hello.
Now is it okay?
Yeah, fine. Whoever is speaking, the rest will mute their mic. Chief is saying only my my voice is proper. Okay, chalo, who's going to speak next? And the rest can mute till we figure out who it is.
Sandy, go ahead. You go.
Sandy, I think to अपनी mic check कर ले because the echoing came after you joined back. Blood, continue.
Okay, we'll find out if my voice is echoing or not. Yeah, the point is देखिए चाहिए Yep, my voice is echoing as well.
I'll get rid of the presentation. Let's see if that works. Okay. Right. Okay. All right.
Right. So JD Vance and Trump decided to put some sense into that particular individual. Goes by the name of Zelensky. लेकिन वो ये है ना, फिर जब कोकेन का नशा चढ़ा होता है वो फिर वो उतरता नहीं है. सारी दिक्कत यही है. और उसको समझाने की बड़ी कोशिश करी है कि भाई तुम मान जा, पीस डील साइन कर, ठीक है, और जो जितना हमने खर्चा किया है, दे आर बिजनेसमैन. $350 odd billion have been spent on that particular godforsaken war. वही लेना तो है वापस, कुछ ना कुछ तो करेंगे ना, वो खाली हाथ थोड़ी नहीं जाने देंगे. तो वही है, he took umbrage to it and basically there was an ego clash. वो कहा हुआ ना, उससे बस चने के झाड़ पे चढ़ा के रखा हुआ कि भाई हाँ तू है. So that's the reason this practice happened. Right.
I think people said get rid of the video. एक सेकंड मैं कह रहा हूँ, people said get rid of the video, so that might solve. So इसलिए मैंने वीडियो बंद कर दिया. That might have been the reason वो आ रहा था loop back. हाँ नहीं continue. हाँ.
So Zelensky, he is going to come back 6 months. After 6 months, he's going to come back, right? he would have suffered a lot more casualties. And yep, and then he will come peace agreement. And this time, Trump and JD Vance, they won't be that generous. वो कहेंगे जितना चला गया रशिया के पास, वो जाने दो उसको बस। और बस यही है बस। तब it's Vladimir Putin's now it's his deal. व्लादिमीर पुतिन की टर्न है। वो किस हिसाब से और कितने हद तक वो अपनी फौज को, तो वी विल ऑल फाइंड आउट। यार मेजर इनका जो बेनिफैक्टर, इनका मेजर सपोर्टर है वो अमेरिका है। सारे हथियार इन्होंने दिए, फंडिंग इनको वो दे रहे हैं, जो पेमेंट्स हैं वो कर रहे हैं फौजियों की, सारा खर्चा ये है। अमेरिका अगर बैक्स आउट बस फिर ठीक है, देन इट्स गुड फॉर देम। एंड ईयू हैज नो आर्मी ऑफ एनी वैल्यू। जर्मनी के पास कुछ नहीं है, फ्रांस के पास भी चलो ठीक है, दे हैव न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स एंड दे आर अ पावर, बट बाय एंड लार्ज द रेस्ट ऑफ यूरोप दे आर नो मैच फॉर द रशियन मिलिट्री मशीन। और ये बात गौर करने वाली है कि रशिया इज राइट नाउ अ वार इकोनॉमी। चाहे जितने मर्जी सैंक्शंस लगा दिए हैं, रशियन इकोनॉमी इज स्टिल ग्रोइंग फास्ट। कोई खास घंटा फर्क नहीं पड़ा। तो ये इसकी आएगा 6 महीने 8 महीने बाद फिर आएगा कि भैया
उनका तो फायदा हो गया,
फिर से आप पीस एग्रीमेंट करवाएं भाई।
मैं कह रहा ब्लड उनका तो फायदा हो गया, उन्होंने तो सारे रीनेम कर दिए। और ये जो गोरे कंपनियां थी मैकडोनल्ड वगैरह, उन्होंने एक सब्सिडरी खोल दी है दूसरे नाम से, और वो वही सामान बेच रहे हैं। बट वी गॉट मास्टर चीफ, इसका डिफेंस में बड़ा इंटरेस्ट रहता है। मास्टर चीफ, आई थिंक सैंडी वांट्स 2 minutes, बट लेट मी हैव अ क्विक वर्ड विद मास्टर on this one, because इसका डिफेंस में काफी इंटरेस्ट रहता है, because then we have to move ahead. मैं बाकी नहीं दिखाता हूँ because I think people got the gist of it, जो हमारे को दिखाना था, how it went. I think people got a gist of it कि क्या हो रहा था। मास्टर कहाँ गया? हाँ हाँ, चलो सैंडी का।
So one of the things that I wanted to put to the table is जो ये बार बार हर दूसरे तीसरे साल चला जाता है कि भाई यूक्रेन के नाम पे मुझे दे दे बाबा, यूक्रेन के नाम पे दे दे, डॉलर नहीं तो वोट का कॉलर दे दे बाबा, इंटरनेशनल फकीर है बाबा, ठीक है। So the way the way he does that, every time he goes, he gets this thing, a check comes back, siphons off half of the money. If you look at the reports, 2022 में ना एमनेस्टी इंटरनेशनल ने एक रिपोर्ट पब्लिश की थी जिसको उन्होंने बैक ट्रैक कर लिया था, ठीक है। और स्टॉकहोम पीस की एक कमिटी है, आई फॉरगॉट द फुल नेम, but that's also one of the very popular sort of analytical society that does a lot of these researches. They had said that out of the entire money that goes into Ukraine, केवल 30% उस चीज के लिए जा रहा है जिसके लिए वो दिया गया है, यानी लड़ने के लिए। बाकी सब कहाँ जा रहा है? बाकी सब गोंडागोल हो रहा है, ठीक है। नाउ if you look at Zelensky himself, yeah, he wants to portray, and the world wants to buy this point, that he is a freedom fighter, so to say. He is a very great man. If you look at how this has gone about, you will find that he is no less than a traitor, the traitor of Ukraine. Why do I say this? Yeah. Not that I'm saying this in thin air, but if you look at the entire situation, the way things have gone about, is he interested in shortening the war? He is not. He wants the war to elongate. Give me one example of any representative of the nation or the first citizen of the nation would have asked his defense minister to say, and he backed it as well, that if the world wants to test their equipment, then Ukraine is their testing bed. Who on this earth would do that?
You are using your country as a test bed for testing military equipment. No one can be as shameless as him. Hmm? Then, if you look at what happened, during Maidan, before Maidan, etc., you would realize that he's not. He's. I mean, when he goes and says that Minsk was done because we were preparing, so he was preparing for war any which ways, right? So, if you were preparing for war, either you were prepared enough to win this war for your people, right? जैसे एक पैरेलल ड्रॉ करते हैं लोग भाग, जब हम हिंदुस्तान की बात करते हैं तो बहुत लोग पैरेलल ड्रॉ करते हैं कि कल को अगर चाइना ने आपके ऊपर हमला कर दिया या आपके ऊपर पाकिस्तान ने हमला कर दिया तो आप क्या करेंगे? फिर तो आप भी कहेंगे कि आप अपना रीजन वापस कर दीजिए। ऐसा थोड़ी होता है। देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन द टू सिचुएशंस। We don't have one, we don't have civil war. Our government is not killing our people. Number one. Number two, if there is a border issue, there is a way to deal with that border issue, right? If we are going out and doing a war, we are doing it on our own capabilities, not on someone else's money. Not on someone else's money. If you fight wars on someone else's money, that someone else will ask at some point in time for you to return that money. That is what these guys have been asking for. कि भाई तो हमें कुछ तो देगा बदले में, कि फ्री में तेरा, जो ब्लड भाई ने कहा था कि फ्री में तेरा $300 बिलियन हमने खर्चे, $350 बिलियन हमने तेरे ऊपर खर्चे कर दिए। अब तू कह रहा है कि भाई वो तो खत्म हो गया सर वो तो गया, पैसा तो गया, अब और थोड़ा दो। ठीक है, यू कांट कम एवरी डे एंड से हमने ये भी खर्चा कर दिया, जो हमने उससे फौज खड़ी करी थी फौज को हमने खत्म कर दिया, बाकी तो हमारे बच्चे खा गए, ठीक है, और बाकी हम तो फिर आ गए हैं, देख दो हमें जी पैसा। इट डजंट वर्क दैट वे। So if you look at the entire situation, you'll find that this guy does not have a plan, and this guy does not.
No, I have a different take on that, and the take is मैं मास्टर को भी include करता हूँ, and because I have to move to the next segment is regarding India's connection with that. देखो, मेरे को लगता है कि he does not want the war to end. ठीक है, there are a lot of concerns regarding the spending of funds, and I think before we came online, I don't know, it was you or Blood who was talking about कि भाई एक बहुत महंगी कार खरीदी गई थी इसकी बीवी के नाम पे और उसकी पूरी पर्ची वर्ची निकाल दी थी भाई, उसके वो शॉपिंग स्प्री भी उसकी बीवी की, वो गुची, वर्साचे और इन सब की भी निकली थी। देयर इज अ नोन
सर,
थिंग
आप
कि भाई
भूल रहे हैं
तो
18 मिलियन यूरोस का एक विला, और
हाँ,
एक और विला 100 मिलियन से ऊपर का खरीद
करेक्ट
चुका है, 7 मिलियन के नाम।
हाँ हाँ, करेक्ट, खरीद चुका है फ्रांस वगैरह में। सो देयर इज अ प्रॉब्लम कि भाई देयर इज स्पेंडिंग, द वेपन्स हैव बीन फाउंड इन different countries, far off countries, which were sent by US or NATO. How have they reached those countries? That's a question. So if he already has crossed his limit of tenure, ठीक है, technically speaking, uh, हाँ, वो linkage of mafia and all those things, misuse of funds, देखो इसमें यूएस पॉलिटिशियंस और लोगों ने भी खाए हैं, ये नहीं है कि सिर्फ जेलेंस्की ने खाए होंगे। अगर देखो, मैं विद कॉशियस में कॉशन कह रहा हूँ कि दिस इज द न्यूज इन द मार्केट, मैं नहीं कह रहा कि हुआ है कुछ है, वो अब द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ द डे जिस कंट्री के, दे हैव टू प्रूव इट, बट दिस इज द न्यूज जो विच वी कैन हियर। विलास खरीदे गए हैं फ्रांस में, अदर जगहों पे, and all those kind of things, and the point is कि भाई अगर ये निकल जाएगा, इम्यूनिटी इसकी निकल जाएगी, इसको तो पहले तो इसके अपने लोग ही छोड़ेंगे नहीं।
तुम्हें क्या
अच्छा, he
लगता है
got
हंटर बाइडेन को एमनेस्टी क्यों मिली थी लास्ट डे ऑफ हिज प्रेसिडेंशियल दिस थिंग?
वो
बाइडेन
तो
गेव
बेटे
हिम।
का प्यार, वो तो बेटे का प्यार नेत्रहीन हो गया था वो तो, इसलिए।
हाँ, तो
हाँ,
वो धृतराष्ट्र क्यों बने थे?
इसको इसके
धृतराष्ट्र
ऊपर
इसी के लिए बने थे
इंडियन
क्योंकि अगर
प्रोसिक्यूटर
लैपटॉप
ने
खुलता तो बहुत कुछ खुलता।
चलो मैं जरा मास्टर के पास चलता हूँ अभी
बिल्कुल,
क्विकली,
वहाँ
मास्टर, बिकॉज मेरे
प्रोसिक्यूटर
को
भी
फिर
जो
वो,
थे जिनको बकायदा
हाँ, हाँ,
बाइडेन ने जो
नहीं नहीं,
धमकी भी
आई हैव
दी
टू
थी
गो टू
अगर
मास्टर नाउ।
प्रोसिक्यूटर्स को कि भाई साहब अगर आप
अच्छा रुक जा एक सेकंड ब्लड यार, आई हैव टू गो टू मास्टर नाउ। मास्टर, बिफोर यू डिसअपियर अगेन।
फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल साउंड चेक आ रही है, आवाज क्या नहीं आ रही?
हाँ हाँ अब आ रही है, अब आ रही है। हाँ हाँ, and anybody coming here, I would
हाँ
advise them to use a laptop than the phone, क्योंकि आप फोन को हिलाते हो तो you can get thrown out of it. That's what I've realized in Restream. हाँ, whether it doesn't have a built-in app. हाँ, continue, master.
आई थिंक मैं कल से देख रहा हूँ। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आई थिंक जो ट्रम्प ने जो प्रॉमिस किया था, ही मेड श्योर दैट इट इज डिलीवर्ड। अभी इट इज द ओनली द फर्स्ट द पॉइंट वन ऑफ हिज प्रॉमिस कि he'll make sure that ये war और extend ना हो। So okay, he called him up over here, अच्छी तरह से फटकाया। Second point, he it's since he is a businessman, he won't easily let go of Zelensky। अभी तक जितना पैसा फेंका है तेरे पे वो तो मिलना ही चाहिए। That will be the recovery part of it, and it will be a very brutal process on Zelensky। क्योंकि Zelensky ने as a comedian does, he tried to take more than he can bite, so he proved himself as a comedian वहां पर तो। and since उसने पूरे के पूरे alt media को, पूरे के पूरे opposition को, he has already you know put them behind the bars, so he cannot go and cry to any of his people okay bhai, this is the point where I actually need your support, that some other third party, third country is coming and asking me to do this, and whatever I had done was just in favor of this country। तो वहां पर भी फेल हो जाता है। तो and what is happening is Putin is having the biggest laugh possible of his life, जहाँ पर ना उस पे sanctions जो डाले थे वो काम किए, because being a KGB, he must have already understood, and he must have thought almost 5 to 10 years ahead कि कहाँ पर से क्या करेगा। See, because whatever you can do is basically target the things which are directly appearing। Russian black markets are one of the biggest black markets all over। You can always टारगेट कर सकते हो जो व्हाइट मार्केट, जैसे कि अपना स्विफ्ट कोड से निकाल दिया रशियन बैंक्स को। मतलब फर्क पड़ा, कितना पड़ा? यू हैव जस्ट ओलिगार्क्स के तुम लोगों ने प्रॉपर्टीज जब्त कर ली, कितना किसी को फर्क पड़ा? रशिया वाज मूविंग द वे इट वाज सपोज्ड टू बी। इन लोगों ने ये ऑलरेडी करके रखा था। सिंस Zelensky is not a politician, neither a army guy कि वो प्रेडिक्ट कर सके कि कहाँ पर क्या होने वाला है। And it was very easy for him to get manipulated। सेम थिंग अपना बाइडेन, जैसे उसको डीप स्टेट ने जहाँ तक मुझे लगता है बहुत बहुत बेरहमी से मैनिपुलेट किया, और दूसरी अपनी कमला आंटी। So overall, it was always Russia who would have had the final laugh, and वो अभी सही होता दिख रहा है। And I don't know how Zelensky, because see, the war is getting over, whatever it is, maybe not tomorrow, but definitely within next 2 months। Even if he's running towards a European Union might just be able to give Zelensky a pat on the back। That's how much I believe they'll European Union will be giving to Zelensky। उसके ऊपर नहीं है, because entire Europe is
देखो
on the
देखो यूरोप तो
whims and whims of US।
हाँ यूरोप तो नहीं, यूरोप थोड़ा बहुत शायद दे देगा, बिकॉज यूरोप इज ऑल्सो ट्राइंग टू शो कि भाई वी आर नॉट टोटली डिपेंडेंट ऑन यूएस, तो वो एंगल आप भूल नहीं सकते। और ऑलरेडी यूरोप भी पिस्ड ऑफ विद यूएस है बिकॉज ऑफ द जो ट्रेड टैरिफ्स ये लगा रहा है, राइट? सो दैट एंगल कैन नॉट बी मिस्ड। But now I want to actually go to the next portion of the same thing जो मैंने originally discuss किया था। I think we have had too much of this discussion। The original portion was कि भाई कि व्हाट शुड इंडिया लर्न फ्रॉम इट, और उससे मैं पहली चीज जो मैं पॉइंट आउट करना चाहता हूँ विच इज द डिफेंस पोर्शन. देयर हैज बीन, शुड इंडिया बाय द F-35? बिकॉज ऐसा नहीं है कि इंडिया, लोगों को शायद पता नहीं है, इंडिया काफी कुछ खरीदता है इनसे. जैसे आपके वो चीनू हेलीकॉप्टर थे, वो बड़े वाले जो हेलीकॉप्टर होते हैं वो खरीदता है. वो ग्लोब मास्टर जो है, जो बहुत बड़ा प्लेन है, जिधर जिसमें यू कैन वो यू कैन हैवी ड्यूटी ट्रांसपोर्ट, वो प्लेन है, वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट होता है वो हमारे पास है. आई थिंक वी ऑपरेट, इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग, 10 ग्लोब मास्टर्स. और उसकी वो रिपेयर वगैरह भी यहीं पर ही होता है, उसका मेंटेनेंस एंड रिपेयर. There are a lot of stuff which we do buy, but not that much as compared to Russia. But अभी जो one of the biggest 112 planes की जो डील आने वाली है, which is regarding the fourth or the fifth, I think we'll go for fifth generation planes only. तो हम fourth generation और 4.5 generation को skip कर देते हैं because we already have Rafales, and I think uh, with China increasing its fifth generation prominence and also giving a contract to give the fifth generation or their 4.5 generation J-20s to Pakistan, it becomes all more potent that that we have to have a fifth generation plane also in our arsenal. एंड उसके लिए वो 112 का जो टेंडर अभी निकल रहा है, उसके लिए अभी F-35 और Su-57 आए हैं दो सामने. The question I have for the panel is, should India even consider F-35 planes? Because F-35 में it's not a single plane. उसमें एक कॉन्सेप्ट होता है कि one plane can control all the others. वो विंगमैन का कॉन्सेप्ट रहता है उसमें. और उसमें सिर्फ प्लेन्स भी नहीं होती, उसमें सिर्फ प्लेन वो नहीं होता उसमें. ओके, ब्लड हैज टू गो. If he can come back later, that's fine. But thank you, Blood, for joining. But उसमें एक और कॉन्सेप्ट होता है, इट्स एन इंटीग्रेटेड सिस्टम होता है. उसमें everything is controlled through software and this, which US does not share with anyone. The only exception जो आज तक उसने बना रखा है वो है इजराइल, और उसका भी जो भी काम कुछ है, थोड़ा बहुत जो एक्सेस दे रखा है जो फाइल्स का, वो भी उनके बंदे वहीं बैठते हैं और वो करते हैं. बाकी तो इन्होंने यूके तक को भी एक्सेस दे रखा है. कल को if we go into we have a spat with the US, वो अपडेट्स देना बंद कर देंगे, तो फिर क्या करोगे आप? बिकॉज वी आर हाईली डिपेंडेंट ऑन इट. सोर्स कोड आप उन्होंने किसी को दिया नहीं है, ना वो देंगे. हाउ विल यू डू इट? इंटीग्रेशन के लिए आपको बार बार यू हैव टू बी डिपेंडेंट ऑन देम. आपको अपना ब्रह्मोस इंटीग्रेट करना है, आपकी अपनी बहुत सारी अस्त्रा मिसाइल है, ये सब है, कैसे करोगे? Sandy, you want to say something on it? No, लगता है Sandy will be back in 2 minutes. So the question is कि should तो मैं वही पूछ रहा हूँ. The question I have is कि should India consider F-35? It's a competent plane, मैं उसमें dispute नहीं कर रहा. There are issues with F-35 also. Capability wise, F-22 Raptor is superior than F-35. F-35 is more of a multi-role. F-22 is more of a Raptor is more of a strike plane. इसमें सुपर क्रूज की भी प्रॉब्लम रहती है. बट द पॉइंट इज कि it is Israel has used it recently. Sorry, go ahead.
I think from India's perspective, I think the government of the day has made it very clear. Right? हम उन्हीं के साथ जाएंगे. हमारी जो फर्स्ट प्रेफरेंस है वो वे लोग हैं जो मेक इन इंडिया के तहत यहाँ पे प्लेन बना सकते हैं या यहाँ पे हथियार बना सकते हैं. ठीक है, या हमें ये अभी जो what I've read and heard, and I can be wrong here, but what I've heard is they've said that they'll give them some assembly capabilities. They will not make
वो
in
देखो
India.
नहीं, देखो उसमें मेरे को प्रॉब्लम है बिकॉज ये हमने बैक इन दी 90s में हमने ये सेम चीज हरकत करी थी which is now called the Sukhoi conundrum, या उसके दो तीन अलग नाम होते हैं, जब हाँ पर हमने अराउंड 230 प्लेन्स का किया कि हम इंडिया में बनाएंगे, बट वी डिड नो टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर. तो हमने प्लेन्स तो बना दिए पर उनको कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ एट द एंड ऑफ द डे, क्योंकि वो उन्हीं के पार्ट्स होते थे, हम बेसिकली नट बोल्ट टाइट करते थे.
So if you look at the Hindon Air Base, which was created for this thing, मतलब Hindon Air Base always existed, but उसे ये कर दिया गया था, क्या नाम है, it got converted into this thing, repair facility and assembly facility for अपना CJ Hercules जो planes हैं उनके, ग्लोब मास्टर्स और
हाँ, ग्लोब मास्टर,
ये
ग्लोब मास्टर्स,
ग्लोब मास्टर प्लस हरक्यूलिस, CJ13 और CJ19 इफ आई रिमेम्बर करेक्टली, दोनों के लिए, ग्लोब मास्टर और हरक्यूलिस दोनों के लिए वो फैसिलिटी बनी थी. सो दे डू असेंबली एंड आल्सो रिपेयर एंड मेंटेनेंस देयर,
रिपेयर एंड मेंटेनेंस, हाँ,
एंड इट्स काइंड ऑफ द हब फॉर देम इन दिस रीजन. ठीक है, सो दे आर ट्राइंग टू पिच इन द सेम काइंड ऑफ डील. शुड वी गो फॉर इट? My senses, and given how they've done their stuff so far, I feel that they might not take this bait, and they may consider if they may not go full blown. They might not take everything from them. They might take some parts from there and some parts from Russia, but my sense is we will do complete not I don't think we'll do US. We might not do Russia either. We could do something else, like जब हमने ये
नहीं, वो ये दो ही होंगे. I'll tell you why.
जब हम रफेल की डील कर रहे थे तभी हमारे ऊपर काफी प्रेशर था, बट वी वेंट इन
नहीं, उसका मैं रीजन बता देता हूँ कि हमारे पास ऑप्शन नहीं है इन दो के. 5th जनरेशन प्लेन्स जो है ना, 4th जनरेशन, 4.5 जनरेशन प्लेन, ग्रिफिन हो गया आपका, रफेल हो गया, वो टाइफून हो गया, 5th जनरेशन नहीं है वो. 5th जनरेशन वो लोग बना भी नहीं रहे, वो सीधा 6th जनरेशन बना रहे. यूके बना रहा है, आई थिंक जापान के साथ मिलके, आई थिंक सऊदी अरेबिया भी उसमें कूद गया है. आई थिंक 4-5 कंट्रीज मिलके वो 6th जनरेशन प्लेन बना रहे हैं. वो 2030 तक वो कह रहे हैं प्रोटोटाइप बनेगा. We cannot wait that long. We need some plane right now. The 5th generation capable planes अभी मार्केट में, चाइना अपने आप को 5th जनरेशन नहीं बोलता, 4.5 जनरेशन बोलता है, क्योंकि उसमें कनाड वगैरह है तो उसकी सिग्नेचर वगैरह, और हमको तो बेचेगा नहीं. सो दैट इज आउट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन. द पीपल हु कैन सेल अस द 5th जनरेशन ओनली 2 कंट्रीज, यूएस और दूसरा हो गई रशिया. यूएस के पास है F-35 और F-22 रैप्टर. F-22 रैप्टर उन्होंने जिंदगी में आज तक किसी को बेचा नहीं, उसकी प्रोडक्शन भी बंद हो चुकी है, वो अपने लिए भी नहीं बना रहे. सो दैट इज आउट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन. F-35 इज समथिंग दे हैव ऑफर्ड. इनिशियली दे वर ऑफरिंग अस with की F-21 खरीद लो, which was an upgraded state of the art latest using part and parcel lot of parts of the F-35, जो F-16 का upgraded version था, जो उन्होंने, जो कभी भी लॉन्च नहीं हुआ. उन्होंने कहा था ये लॉन्च सिर्फ इंडिया के लिए होगा, बट अगेन बिकॉज वी चोज रफेल, so that is out of the question. पहले उन्होंने बोला था आप F-21 लोगे, हम आपके असेंबली बनाएंगे. बाद में उससे भी मुकर गए थे वो कि असेंबली, इट डजंट मैटर फ्रॉम वेयर इट इज बीइंग मेड, क्योंकि आप इसको लो, उसके बाद हम F-35 की बात करेंगे. पर अभी वो ऑप्शन एक डिस्कशन के लिए आ गए कि वी मे गिव यू F-35. देखो ये ऑफिशियली नहीं आई है अभी, ये उसने सिर्फ बोला है, ये की बात करी है, ठीक है. जबकि रशिया साफ बोल रहा है कि अगर आप Su-57 प्लस उनका एक और है जिसको चेकमेट बोलते हैं, दैट इज अ सिंगल इंजन प्लेन, वो उन्होंने पिछले साल अनवील किया था, एंड ये डबल इंजन है बाय द वे, ठीक है. और वो सिंगल इंजन जो है वो उन्होंने अनवील किया था पिछले साल, और बोला था वो अभी हम पूरी टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर, रशिया ने कहा था हम इंडिया को देंगे. तो रशिया के पास 2 प्लेन है, आप ये मत सोचो, उसका 2 प्लेन है. और दूसरी चीज ये भी है, रशिया ये भी कह रहा है जो उनका लेटेस्ट इंजन है जिसकी 6000 आवर्स की सीलिंग है, जनरली इनकी 2500 आवर्स की होती है. द प्रॉब्लम विद व्हाई इंडिया गोज टू जीई इज बिकॉज उनकी भी 5000 आवर्स की वो रीहॉलिंग की सीलिंग होती है. ये नेप उसको कह रहे हैं कि 6000 है. मैं कह रहा हूँ 6000 नहीं भी होगा, 4000 है, स्टिल बेटर देन 2500 जो इनकी करंट होती है. तो अगर आपने वो सब देखा जो इनका नया है, और वो कह रहे हैं कि आपके तेजस मार्क 1 में सीधा का सीधा लग जाएगा, यू डोंट हैव टू मेक एनी चेंजेस इनटू दैट. हमारी वो प्रॉब्लम भी सॉल्व हो जाएगी. ये इन्होंने हमसे साइन किया, और अब हमारे को इंजन दे नहीं रहे हैं, ये जी के इंजन दे नहीं रहे हैं, ये कर रहे हैं, और इसके चक्कर में हेल प्रोड्यूस नहीं कर रहा। आई हैव इश्यूज विद हेल, दैट्स अ सेपरेट इशू, पर उनके पास सबसे बड़ा बहाना है कि भाई हमारे पास इंजन ही नहीं है तो प्लेन का लेके करोगे क्या। अगर आप उसके साथ गए, दे आर सेइंग कि जो आपकी सुखोई की करंट फैक्ट्री है, आप उसमें ये वाले प्लेन भी बना सकते हैं, सो वी कैन स्टार्ट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फ्रॉम द डे वन। तो ये एक और अच्छी चीज है, प्लस दे आर रेडी टू डू टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर, और दे आर आल्सो इन टॉक्स की वो इंजन का के साथ, आई डोंट थिंक वो इंजन की टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर करेंगे, बट दे हेल्प अस मेक आवर ओन इंडिजिनस इंजन एज वेल। कह रहे उसके लिए सैफरान भी है, रोल्स रॉयस भी आ गई है उसमें। तो इट इज इंटरेस्टिंग। हाँ, नाउ मास्टर, आई थिंक आई हैव सेड मोर देन इनफ। मास्टर, व्हाट डू यू हैव टू ऐड इनटू दिस वन? मास्टर नहीं है तो फिर देन सैंडी यू कैन कंटिन्यू।
I think it makes sense to go with that those things, the Russian ones, and I'm sure कुछ भी करने से पहले ये दोनों साइड्स, तीनों साइड्स मतलब, ठीक है, वो भी अपना पूरी कोशिश करेगा, जान लगाएगा, अपना ट्रम्प भी, हमारे लोग भी नेगोशिएशन तो छोड़ेंगे नहीं। तो इट्स
यार हम नेगोशिएशन में बहुत बेकार है यार। ये देखो, हमारे को जो देखना पड़ेगा ना कि अगर F-57 है, ठीक ठाक है, मैं दोनों के अपने अपने पॉजिटिव एंड नेगेटिव्स है। इट्स नॉट, ओ आई माय गेस्ट फ्रॉम abroad has come. Nuke Bear, welcome to the house.
Thank.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Sorry, I have a bad throat, but
Uh,
I hope you guys can understand me.
that's
I was able to connect
that
to
we
my
can
desktop and put my headset to
that's
it.
fine. That's fine. Let's continue. Let's continue the discussion. We were having a detailed discussion about the whole Russia, the infamous meeting which recently happened. But now we have shifted to another set of topic, which is what should India learn from all that discussion? That should India, because India is now going to purchase around 112, if I'm not wrong, fifth generation planes. They have not specified which type, but I think it will be fifth generation, because they will not go for fourth generation. Otherwise, they could have just done a Rafale repeat order. So my question is to you, from where you are looking at, before we continue, because this is your first time, if you could give an introduction for yourself, so people know who you are. We have met multiple times on this, because this is being streamed both in YouTube and Twitter. So might be first time people are hearing you on YouTube. So Nuke Bear, the floor is yours. If you could give a quick introduction about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm a geopolitical analyst, and I reside in the Netherlands. Um, and my Twitter handle is pretty much awesome bear at awesome bear with
I'll,
three BERs.
don't worry.
Oh, you'll put it up.
I'll put it down
Uh,
in the. I'll put it up. Don't
Sorry,
worry
it's my
about that.
first time. So, yeah, I've been analyzing really got into geopolitics about like 4 years ago, by looking at the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and then ever since then, I have basically been able to uh, look at the world and try to find out how does this impact not only, well, myself in Europe, but also internationally. And that, I guess, we'll get into that conversation, as the question you asked, I think, is regarding the Indian defense industry, right?
Yeah, because we're going to buy a lot of planes, right?
Yeah.
We are bleeding, means we have to retire planes. We are extending their life. Planes are falling down. MiGs are still there. MiG 21s are still there. 29s are fine. So we need new planes, and China is producing two J20s every month. So we need to do something about it. So the question is that, should India, and F-35s have been offered, Su-57s have been offered, and I think there is another one, the Checkmate one, which is an Su single engine plane, just like the F-35, been
Yeah, the
offered. Should
Su-75.
India, Yeah, Su-75 checkmate. Yeah. So that's a single engine plane, and they're ready to do technology transfer. While in F-35s, no technology will be transferred. They control all the source code and everything. They haven't even given it to all the other countries. Little bit access has been given to Israel, but the main files and everything are all locked down. So tomorrow, if we have a fight, okay, they don't. And plus there'll be a lot of sovereignty clauses also. The lot of clauses will have to give, Pakistan purchased the F-16s, but they made them sign that the planes you purchase from us, you cannot take them inside Indian territory,
Yeah.
right? They're only for self-defense, right? And when that Balakot airstrike and then the retaliation happened, and they said that they came with F-16s, they had to deny it, even though we all know that they came with F-16. One of the F-16 was shot down by MiG-21 Bison, and after a month, they had to falsely recreate that one F-16 fell down late in the night
Yeah.
while doing exercise. You know about that, right?
Yeah.
So they could get the count corrected, right? And US was damn pissed off because it's their biggest selling plane, and when the countries know that a plane which was got shot down by one generation behind plane that also produced back in 70s and 80s, and so it looks bad, and they had to then they had to create a scene where their F-16 fell down mysteriously late in the night. We all know that no plane fell down. It was just a way to get the count equal. So my question to you is that they'll make you sign these clauses with India as well. Integration of missiles or anything will be always an issue. Tomorrow any software update comes, and if India is not in good terms with them, they're not going to give it to us.
Well,
So what's your take on that? Yeah.
in terms of the Indian Ministry of Defense, I believe that there, when it comes to the F-35, it's a very complex engine, but it is complex plane, but also it is a plane that has many issues, many issues internally, right? So you have seen with throughout the years, even though it has what over I think a $2 trillion aircraft in terms of the build and the amount of money that's been put into it. There have constantly been various issues with it, whether it's the oxygen environment within the cockpit, whether it's landing gears, whether it's and there's been constant crashes and
Super cruise issue.
Exactly,
The
right?
super cruise also, you cannot do more than 90 seconds, but still
But
the platform is maturing, and it's a competent platform. You
I
cannot deny that, right?
I don't know. It's very hard to say because we have never seen the F-35, at least um, in a modern battlefield scenario. But the main thing is,
No, we have when it went to Iran.
fair enough, even if you look at it that way, but I wouldn't say Iran has an extensively advanced air
No,
defense
no,
system.
I agree
But
with you on that. It still has seen more airworthiness, and even it was used in Syria as well. It's seen more air hours than Su-57, right?
it may
So
have
that
it,
way, the
but I would counteract that with yes, it has seen more air hours, but the Su-57 is the only fifth generation fighter plane that has been flown in a modern battlefield scenario with modern air
no,
defenses
no, no,
in Ukraine.
no,
In Ukraine,
and
they
you
have.
know they yeah, that's fine, but they hardly did it. They hardly did it, and they were using more of their Su-30s and the other ones.
Yes, but even
They
then,
have done it limited capacity. Limited capacity. The only plane I will say, which fifth generation plane which has seen the actual battle, is the F-22 Raptor.
yeah, 100%. There's no doubt
That
about
is
that.
the
That's the no doubt about
and
that.
and that yeah, and no plane can match it
Yeah,
still.
yeah, that's true. In regards to going back to the question, look, if you look at what has happened for recently with the whole Zelensky thing and all. Look, the United States, whenever it signs these very advanced deals, With the F-35, you have to have every 2 weeks, you have to get the source code from the United States in regards to the
Updated
amount,
source code. Yeah.
yeah, updated
Yeah.
source code, whether
Yeah.
to fly the aircraft or not. And that in and myself, in my opinion, is a big issue when it comes to sovereignty, and big issue when it comes to the availability of the aircraft, because you're then relying on the minute on the the U.S. Pentagon to decide whether you can fly that aircraft or not. I think,
I'll call it the activation code. I'll call it the
yeah,
activation
activation
code.
code. That's fair enough.
And
Um,
yeah,
and so I would look at it in that sense. And when it comes to the Su-57, and knowing the uh, relationship that the India has with the Russia, and with the Sukhoi family in terms of their manufacturing, we would probably have a lot more leeway in that. I would guess we wouldn't have any of those limitations. That would make it a lot easier. But also, we have the know-how of how to build Sukhoi aircrafts. The Indians know very well the ins and outs. Of course, this may be a fifth generation, but they've worked with Sukhoi aircrafts before. We have the Indians have a large, I think over 200 Su-30s, 30 MKIs.
more than 230. And they have also said that your current because India not manufactures, basically assembles
Yeah,
the whole Sukhoi Su-30 MKI, which is actually more advanced than the Russian Sukhoi Su-30s, because they integrate two three other things as well. They integrate the radar system from Israel, and they have done few more changes, and it has more missile capability because they got Spice missile installed into them. They also have got BrahMos NG and all those kind of things. So it's a more capable plane as compared to the Russian counterpart. It's funny to say, but the MKI version is the most advanced Su-30 there is in the world, because of the heavy modification done from the Indian standpoint, especially looking at the different terrains which are not available for Russia. And so it's a more one, and they have clearly said that your current manufacturing will be able to take can produce the Su-57s, and that's a
well,
very plus point. So pl- yeah,
I would
sorry.
I would
And plus they're new engines.
of course, 100%. But I would also add, when you rely on someone like the United States, it is very well known that there's a famous quote. I think, I don't remember who said it, but it's good to be friends with the It's good to be an enemy of the United States, but it's lethal and it's very deadly to be the friend of the United States. They will throw you under the bus, and
Uh,
you're seeing that in
Henry
Ukraine.
Henry Kissinger is who said it.
Yeah, Henry Kissinger. Thank you. Um, and that is something that I think the Indian top brass should be looking at, because you look at the conditions not only just in Ukraine but even across Europe. The United States will dictate a lot of policy makings because of the amount of weapon systems they sell to, and make their allies and partners dependent on them. And you're seeing that right now in Ukraine. Is without American weapon systems, Ukraine is basically dying. And it will continue to die even if they received weapon systems, but it will die a lot faster without American weapon systems. And I don't think it is um, in the best interest of India to be in a relationship where someone can pull the plug, and next thing you know, you're left stranded. I think certain defense deals that the Indians have done with the Americans have been really good, but I think when it comes to fighter aircrafts, I don't think that's the route to go. I think it was great when you talk about the P-8 Poseidons. You're talking about the new drones that we got, the drones from uh, the um, the U.S. from and various other missile systems. But uh, fighter planes are very advanced and it's a very key component, especially when it comes to protecting your your sovereignty from both You have two border issues with Pakistan. You have it with also um, with what do you call with China. You don't want to get into a position where they're really in a serious issue.
I said, yeah, that's correct. And what I'm more interested in is that Russia may not have the latest tech, but what Russia does have is that their planes are far more hardy, and they're getting a new engine as well, which they're saying is going to have a 6,000 hour ceiling over the overall ceiling, which is like far more than it used to be, 2,500 hours. And and integration with India will be far easier because they have done that in the past as well, so they know the market and they also know what are the requirements, and they are happy to share the technology. I think the mistake what we did in when we did the deal with the Su-30s was that we did we'll make it in India, but they shared no technology, so we basically were nothing more than glorified assembliers. Then if we do a technology transfer at this point of time, it will be in a better situation. Now my question to you is, because you weren't there at that point of time, is going back to, I think we all are coming to the same agreement. I have a question. Does Su-57 have any plans to make a naval version like the MiG-29? I think it is K, MiG-29K. K is their naval version. Do they have any plans to make a naval version for Su-57s as well?
As not that I have seen or heard of. It may be possible in the future, but I think right now they're really
Because one of the requirements we have for the naval versions is we generally look for twin engines.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, and that's one of the requirements we have. And Rafael was an exception into this, but we generally prefer to have twin engines. And Rafael unfortunately doesn't have its wings also go upwards, right?
Foldable, yeah.
Yeah, foldable ones, right? But again, we don't have so many planes that we are cramming for space or something like that. We'll have our third, what is that called? The one on which the planes land. What is that
Yeah,
called?
aircraft
Aircraft
carriers, yeah.
carrier. Yeah, and we won't have planes for that, so it's okay
I think
if the wings don't
I
go.
think in terms of the naval capacity, Su-57, you have to remember it's an I wouldn't say it's still in its infancy, right? In terms of where this aircraft is going to go, and
Mhm.
I think
As a platform,
yeah, hundred
yeah,
percent as a platform, right? So there's a lot of room for improvements, and a lot of
yeah.
variations can come out of it. I think you have to look at it as well as um, the Russians are right now in a massive, conflict with basically the whole of NATO. So I think they realize that that is not what is
But
required right now.
there is one thing I figured out, that they only have one
Aircraft carrier.
aircraft
Yeah.
carrier, and they basically are more on submarines than aircraft carriers.
Well, yes.
Their strategy.
The strategy is completely different. So if you look at Russian doctrine, their doctrine has always been defense, and we will defend the motherland. And so the if you look at missile technologies, when you talk about hypersonics and the Oreshnik missile system that was recently
The
deployed at
Poseidons.
the
Yeah.
Poseidon as well, that was the Oreshnik that was deployed
Mhm.
and used in Ukraine a couple months ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the Russians have always stated that what's the point of having multiple aircrafts and an aircraft carrier when missiles can go faster than a plane can? So why do we need that? And it makes sense where American might was based on naval and aircraft might, aircraft dominance, right? Air dominance, which is great, especially when you're the United States and you want to dominate the world and have a global hegemonic system, which is something the Russians have never been interested in. But what we have recently seen is the Russians are starting to move their chess pieces. They have built two bases in Syria. They're working on making a base in Libya. So I think what you're now seeing is a fingerprints, a movement of Russian assets across the African continent and also some parts of Asia. So that will give them a lot of leeway as to moving their assets. They don't need an aircraft carrier when their goal is never to dominate the world. Their goal has always been to protect Russian interests.
Yeah, to protect the motherland.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm thinking, does it align with our strategic? Because even like with Russia, we also have a very big coastline, but they also need you like it or not, they do share what that Vladivostok is a sore contention between them and China, and they do share coastline with China. They do, so it's not that they can't be totally not naval strong. They will be developing onto it, and they know that China does have a lot of aircraft carriers being built up, and but again they have a countermeasure for it. Always Russia always thinks from two aspects. One is to keep China at bay, and the other one is to also keep US at bay. By US, they're more towards the missile technology, which they anyways are leading right now. They got the Poseidons, they got
Yeah.
BrahMos is actually an variant of the Russian missile, and so they have enough of missiles for
I
that,
would
and
add
any upgrade.
I would add one
Yeah.
thing. Aircraft carriers when they first started coming out in the what?
World War
Yeah,
Two,
World War II, right?
World War Two.
World War II. They were a massive game changer. But as time and technology has evolved, what we see now is when you have an aircraft carrier and it's one thing to have an aircraft carrier and using it on Iraq and Afghanistan or any of the tinier countries like without advanced weapon systems, but even
Yeah,
now what we're seeing, even what you saw in Yemen with in the Red Sea with the whole Israel issue, right? Is what one thing we saw is naval assets are sitting ducks to a large degree. Yes, they may have their air defense systems
yeah.
on board.
They need to have a whole. It's not just an
True.
aircraft
Yeah, yeah,
carrier which goes.
yeah, they
They have a whole team
the
which
whole fleet,
protects that,
right? Yeah, but
right?
they have the whole
Frigates
fleet.
and all those kind of
Yeah,
things.
the
Yeah,
submarines and all.
yeah.
But the main thing is if and this is where warfare is changing drastically is if you put enough drones in the air, drones in the air, and you launch it to a target.
Especially kamikaze
Yeah,
drones. Especially
kamikaze,
kamikaze drones.
exactly. You put some Landsats. Let's say you put 100 Landsats in the air, which are kamikaze drones, the Russian kamikaze drones, and you put it to a naval target. Yeah, the air defense will not be able to take down all, but those targets will hit those drones will hit their target. But the main thing is
And much cheaply.
at a much
And
cheap,
much cheaply
yeah,
as well.
exactly, at a much affordable rate. But also, if needed, and the Russians have this. I know the Indians are working on this. The Chinese also have it. Is a naval missile, anti-ship missile. You put multiple hypersonics to that, and it's gone. So they're largely sitting ducks in the modern scenario. So yes, it's great to have aircraft carriers, but the question comes down to is how are you going to use those aircraft carriers? So like if you're India, for example, and you want to build a third aircraft carrier, I would say it makes sense, but ultimately that is if you really want to expand your foothold in the Indian Ocean, which is fair enough. But however, if you think about it, India already has.
No, because see, there are three aircraft carriers. I can tell you the strategic position. One is placed somewhere in Gujarat side, so it looks at the Pakistani side, right? Second one gets placed near lower at the Bay of Bengal, near the what is that area, which is our islands,
The Andaman
which
and
what
Nicobar.
is that? The islands, which where that strait where all the petrol and everything for
The
China
Malacca
comes.
Strait.
The Malacca Strait, yeah. So you need one there,
The-
one near in the lower portion of it below Sri Lanka. So I can understand at least three are being utilized, and I would say rather than five
yeah,
we would need.
but
So I can understand it.
I would disagree.
Yeah,
I would shift it a bit and say you technically I would agree with three. You don't need more. But if you look at the Andaman Nicobar Islands and the strategicness of the location of those islands, that's a stationary aircraft carrier that will never have to, that's an immovable aircraft carrier, stationary, right? So what happens is if you can put enough, and I think the Indian Air Force and the military MOD is working on this, it's taking one of those islands and making it a complete military zone.
yeah, they are there.
So
They are
you
there.
put
There.
enough naval and not only naval but Air Force. I would be, if I was the Indians, I would basically um, put like a whole, like let's say 5 squadrons of aircrafts, and then from the Air Force side there, then you put at least 2 to 3.
We don't have so many
No,
planes.
I know that, but I'm not talking about initially.
So like if you see this, the Andaman Island, there is an Air Force. There is an Air Force base. There is a base. I won't say Air Force. There's a base
No, but
in
I'm looking at the
the
future, right?
Andaman Islands.
If you're looking at the future,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
would say, of course, we don't. They don't have the planes right now, but in the future, if they're calculating, you should have at least a minimum of 5 squadrons on one of those islands. In case of emergencies, you could shut down the whole Malacca Strait, but also they can basically from the West Bengal to the Malacca Strait, you have full aerial superiority, whether it comes to
Hmm.
Bangladesh, when it comes to any opponents, and then you have um, on the east, sorry, the west. Yes, you can have an aircraft carrier there. That's awesome. The I think the only other option is um, you give the Indians have enough air air power in the from coming from the actual country that can shut down that side of the Pakistani side. My only thing grief with India would be,
So I've got you the map of Andaman
yeah,
Islands, right?
yeah. So you could shut down the whole
So
naval assets. If you put 5 squadrons on Andabar, let's say in the next 20 years, right? From West Bengal, there's a massive Air Force base around Kolkata. I know that. I'm aware of that. And you could shut down most of the,
we
Bay
can
of,
shut down the Malacca Strait
yeah, yeah, you
if
can shut
required.
down the
You
Malacca,
can shut down the.
but you can also shut down the Bay of Bengal completely with full air
Yeah, you can.
superiority.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would,
So
if I was India, my bet would be signing a major deal with the Sri Lankans. In that sense, making it a military base as well on that island. Give them an actual option to move even more southward. That's my when I look at strategicness.
Sri Lanka should always have been part of
Yeah,
India. That was a missed
yeah.
opportunity.
So that would be a lot more strategic. But it all comes down to what the Ministry of Defense does. But at the current moment, I have to be honest and say they have really messed up in the last 20 years. The whole Air Force,
Yeah,
the Navy has done well.
50
The
years.
Army has.
I'll say 50 years. You remember Marut?
I do not know that. Sorry, I'm not so.
So Marut was, if Sandy, you know about Marut? Uh, Marut was our first indigenous
Yes.
plane being built
Yes.
up. Yeah, yeah. Do you want to say anything about the Marut? This one?
No, you continue.
And what happened with that? Yeah. So Marut was the first indigenous plane being built up, and it was back in Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's time. and it strategically got shut down by these foreign companies, right? And one of the reasons why Marut could a plane could not take was because none of these countries wanted to give us the engine, and if we don't have that powerful engine, the plane is as good as useless. So they ensured that the dependency is always with them, and hence and then there was this, I'm pretty sure, kickbacks and all those kind of things which of our babus which derailed the whole thing. Otherwise, back in the day, we had already built a plane called Marut, and you can search about it. So we have been mismanaging our this defense deals from way back, man, way back. Our babus have been screwing it up from way back. I don't feel bad about calling it out. I understand you cannot develop your engine. It's a very advanced technology, right? But it takes you 30 years to build a plane, right? And 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 then on top of that, HAL is given a contract who has no competition, and our commander for the Air Force, just as back as 2 weeks, clearly said that I don't have faith in HAL, which is the company, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, the government company which is producing it. They said in 40 years they couldn't even produce 40 planes. So I don't have faith in it. So if you're the head of the Air Force is saying that, that's a very sad situation.
I
And he's
agree, and
publicly saying it.
I agree with that. And I wasn't aware of that statement, but I would also add that India.
He made that statement when the air show happened, where they showed Su-57 and F-35, right? And that's when he said, it's like 2 weeks back. It's not that old statement, and you can see it. You can check the videos on YouTube for that. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a valid statement to make as well. But I would add what India should be doing as well is stop depending. I think public. How do you say public? Venture out and make the public sector or private sector, sorry, the private sector more in tune to defense needs. So I think we need. I know they've started doing that,
They've started doing that.
but when it
That
comes to
the issue is not that the private sector has been selling a lot of advanced equipments to other countries. The red tapeism in our government needs to be stopped or changed. They get frustrated with no response, presentation after presentation, and no definite response. So how long do you think this they are selling stuff? And I'll give you an example. These I think it was night vision glasses and this, and they were supplying this, a Bangalore company was supplying it to US, right? And when the Indians did some joint exercise, "Hey, this is very good," they said, "Where are these from?" I said, "You don't know, this from your own country." And and it's just that those guys tried to sell it to the Indian armed forces, but they got so much stuck down in the red tapeism, and that's the sad part. So that needs to change. If that doesn't change, nothing's going to happen. You can have a private sector come in, but if this doesn't change, nothing's going to happen then. So yeah, no, yeah, you had something to say. Please continue. Nuke, you're there.
yeah, I'm here. I just it's
Mm-hmm.
it definitely has to change, and hopefully it does over a period of time. But I think the policy changes need to be a lot more quicker, a lot more dynamic, but also a lot more key tuned to the realities of the environment we're living in. Um, you know, I don't live in India, and I live in the Netherlands. And when I'm looking at the current dynamics of the world today, I'm seeing Europe fall apart, and my own country's, the European Union's influence start slowly decline. But then what you see is the Indian influence increase substantially over the last 3 years. Um, and that is something that should be taken into consideration when it comes to the armed forces as well, because you're only as good as your military is. Because ultimately, what I have really over the last 3 years realized is, and by reading a lot of books, is that your ultimately your economy and your military ultimately dictates where you stand in the world stage, and will always do that. And so when it comes down to is the fundamentals of where the world works and how it works is the might is right. And so what where I'm coming from is, unless the Indian defense doesn't keep up with India's economic growth, and doesn't keep up with its modernization at an equal pace. Um, right now, India is probably one of the one and a very important country from the South Asia, and it will continue to be for decades to come. But the military is something that a lot of people will be looking at. If you're the Europeans, you're the Americans, you're looking at the Indian military and saying, can these guys defend themselves, but not only defend themselves, but also progress their interests around the world. Ultimately, as a nation, you want to be have the ability to defend your interests, because as you grow as a nation, your interests grow as well as a nation. Meaning, you have to protect your important, trade routes. You have to protect, like for example, the Indians recently signed a massive oil deal with the Russians, where the Indians will get about, I think, 16 billion or 10 $16 billion worth
Yeah,
of oil from the Russian Federation every year, and that will for the next 10 years.
yeah, yeah,
India needs to
yeah,
be able to know how to defend those ships when needed, if it ever comes in trouble, because these are it's a national security risk, you know. And so they really need to start accelerating some of the decision makings, and as you mentioned clearly, remove the red tape, because if they don't do that in the future, if there is a conflict, anyone can shut down India's energy markets, and India would be in standstill. So that is something very important that India needs to look at. How do they multiply or quadruple the defense sector and make it more efficient going forward?
yeah, yeah. I just posted out something. The all the fifth generation, it doesn't have the checkmate in this one, but I was amazed that the Raptor is actually bigger than the F-35. Always thought the F-35 might be bigger. The Raptor is actually bigger, and that Chengdu J-20 is kind of in between the Raptor and the Su-57. Su-57 is a big plane. So it's the second heaviest, and it is matching Mark II, because Not bad for F-35 S, because it's only a single engine and it's delivering 1.6, while Chengdu with its double engine is delivering Mach 1.7. So it's not bad actually, looking at it. And the empty weight is this. I'm pretty sure that the highest amount of arsenal intake will be by the Su-57 only, by the sheer amount of with the updated engines, it'll be able to take it. So I don't think it's a bad thing. We anyways have a preference of what do you call this wing design, the we have a preference of this wing design also in our army. uh, so we we will be, I think we most probably will end up going with Su-57. And the point is that how much of technology are they ready to transfer, and what will be, they're saying around 40. They are saying that the base would be around there 2-3 talks, that so the price what you get versus the modifications is always the base price. They're saying that we'll get this for around 45, and then you add another 10 to 15 million um, per plane for modifications. So they think you'll get around, for 100 mil, you'll get the most updated Su-57, while this would be somewhere around 150 with the most, with the arsenal and everything. I mean, uh, with
By the way,
with
there's just a bit of breaking news. Sorry.
mhm.
Apparently, Zelensky is going to be meeting the King of the UK tomorrow, King Charles,
He's
which
become super
is
desperate.
very desperate. Sorry, I just needed to say this
No, no, that's
because
good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Please, please. The one of the reasons why, for people who don't know, I uh, I had a chance of meeting Nuke. Did Nuke you come to MySpace or this? And Nuke had started following the Ukraine-Russian war, and he's in a lot of these Telegram channels, and he actually speaks to the ex-war veterans and all those people. And he used to come regularly to my spaces, where he used to give perspective for from a Ukraine viewpoint. He was not a very uh, person there on my spaces, because he was always the opposer of the general viewpoint. But that's interesting. I got a message from one of the people. They saying that we need to wrap it up, but let's wrap it up now. And I had more to discuss, but I think this is more than enough. Sandy, your final comments on this one. And before we go, I do want to open this discussion up on for everybody to ask any questions to Nuke, Sandy, or me. This is a Q&A time for the next 2 minutes before we wrap it up. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up. But while we are waiting for questions, Sandy, do you want to have any final comments, thoughts?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Mhm. Nuke, where do you think the Ukraine-Russia war will be in the next month? I won't say 2 months. What do you think now with the latest information you got?
yeah. So my assessment is after the meeting of that took place yesterday, which was, in my opinion, a complete utter shit show for Ukraine in various manners. It's That's not how diplomacy is done. And going
Mhm.
forward, I think there are two key statements were stated by President Donald Trump, which was, "You have no cards to deal with." One, and the second one being, and he said it towards the end of the argument, was if you don't want peace, and if Zelensky is not ready, if you're not ready for peace, well, let the war continue, and let's see who let's battle it out, and let's see what happens. Basically, indirectly saying is we're not getting involved. If
You're
the
on your
Russians
own.
want, yeah,
You're on
you're
your
on
own.
your own.
Yeah.
You're on your own, and the Russians can
I,
are free to do as they please.
yeah, I played
But
half of that discussion on this one. Uh, somebody has written in Hindi, I mean English, but in Hindi. So the person is asking, on whose payroll is Zelensky? Uh, new.
well, during the Biden administration, he was 100% on the American payroll, American and European payroll, but predominantly American payroll. Um, that's simply because if you go to Burisma, you look at also with Hunter Biden and his corrupt cronies, corruption in Ukraine. So he was 100% under the. But also, I would state very clearly is that
Mhm.
not only is he on the payroll of the Americans, the United States has basically kept the lights on in Kiev for about 3 years. And now, apparently, the United States administration, U.S. administration, has decided to stop the rebuild for electrical power grids as of last night, and is also talking about shutting down all weapon systems. And just one more thing in regards to where you see that I see this going in the next month. I said this last night in one of the spaces that I was in. We're coming into a final we're coming into the collapse of the Atlantic relationship. And what that entails is you're seeing Europe and the leadership of Europe saying we want to continue this war with the Russian Federation, where the Americans are saying we're not going to go into World War III with the Russian Federation over the Ukraine. So, and what's going to seems to be the case is, and seems what will possibly happen is that the Europeans will have to decide, do you want to go to war with the Russian Federation on your own, or do you want to shut up and listen to the big boss, which is the United States of America? And the fact is that uh, the Europe does not have any cards to deal, nor does it have any leverage. It is a continent that is extremely depleted and in dire straits. But if the leadership of Europe wants to go to war with the Russian Federation, I honestly believe, first of all, they will get destroyed immensely, but also America and the U.S. Trump has basically said, "You're on your own. Good luck, have fun, and don't cry when the Russians come after you." That's pretty much it.
What's the view of, you live in Netherlands? What's the view of India in terms of in Europe per se, especially as a mediator? I don't think India has reached that stage, but just asking it aloud.
Um,
Do you do, you-
yeah,
do you
India
think
is
they have
not.
any
India
role?
has. I don't. India hasn't gotten to that level, but I would say that India and has gotten a lot more strategic in its leverage that it holds on Europe. We are aware
Mhm.
of the fact that for the last 3 years, India has been supplying Europe with a lot of gas and a lot of energy, even though the sanctions have been
From
in place.
Russia, from Russia, huh?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and have made a lot of money out doing so. So what India has been, and even though the Europeans have constantly talked about sanctioning Russian, ghost fleets, the Russian ghost fleets, and also possibly sanctioning countries that work with the Russian Federation, the reality is that Europe cannot do anything, and the reality is that Europe needs India more than India needs Europe too, in certain aspects, especially when it comes to energy needs. right now. So,
But
where
also
the
from
how
the
do
viewpoint that that India is the biggest open market for them, while China is a closed market. That is also
well
another
that
big
as well.
thing, and that's what.
Yeah, I believe von der Leyen was in I think in India or was I don't because Modi wasn't in Europe as from my understanding. I think was in India asking for a free trade deal. So look, India has a lot of leverage in terms of how they see India. I think they see India as a positive light, but also they realize that India is no longer the country where it can be dictated what to do. It is a country that needs to be respected, but also understand that India is a very sovereign nation, and and uh, and it's a growing power militarily and economically to a large point where India pretty much, I think by the end of this year will probably have a larger GDP than even Germany. So if I'm not mistaken, or at
Most
least
probably, maybe not this
most
year.
probably,
Most probably by next year, it should cross
yeah. So
Germany.
within 2 years, we'll have a larger economy than Germany, which is the engine of Europe.
Yeah, that's correct.
So yeah,
Germany and France.
well, Germany economically, militarily, France.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, with that, and we will end today's discussion. Before I end, I want to point something out. Sandy is very near in creating in launching his health app FitGlide. Yeah, one of the reasons he was so quiet was cleaning up the bugs. Uh, and Nuke, you're more than welcome to join his app. It's free right now. It's a health app, and it's about how to get you in shape. And he's made it all himself. And I would advise that people at least give us some feedback by joining. It's free. He's making it on his own and not funded by any corporation. So let's give some love to our friend. And if you could scan this app and download and give feedback to us that how it's working, how it's not, it'll be highly appreciated. There is no money involved in it. It's free right now. Uh, so people from at least in India right now, uh, they can download this app, and people abroad. Uh, More than welcome. Okay, and or Sandy saying that Sandy might we'll do another session. Uh, you can go on to his website. Sandy, what's your website address? It's fitglide
https
dot.
.in.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
https fitglide.in.
.in. Yeah, fitglide.in. Please go there, try to log in, and he'll be launching an Android app soon, and then shortly after that he'll be also launching iOS app, or he might do it together. We're just checking that out, and let's give some love to our friend, and let's hope it is successful in his venture. Nuke, thank you so much for coming. I'll call you again. Always a pleasure speaking to you. And with that, we'll end our stream.